And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTBAM. We're here with you all the way until 9:30 this morning, covering everything that moves in the world of sport. It's myself and Eoin with you every morning here on Ireland's only sports breakfast show. You can listen to us as a radio show if you want to just go on to offtheball.com and click the listen button. And there's some good stuff there no matter what time of the day you log in these days. I'll tell you more about that in the coming days. Eoin, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good.
Any crack since?
Well, the first thing that happened this morning was I checked social media and you were bemoaning Dara O'Shea's breaking ranks.
Well, he said we're going to talk anything that moves in the world of sport today. One thing that isn't moving is the dead horse that is Cork GAA. There is no need to flog it anymore. It's already dead. Leave it alone.
Dara O'Shea, Cork will not be Kerry.
This
Cork
is last
will be
year.
Kerry sometime.
This
not
is last
this
year.
time. So that's last year's. And it was like, oh, you know, maybe there's a small, maybe this year he's gone Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, this is the trilogy. 2 years ago he wrote a column bigging up Cork's chances. Didn't materialise.
Was that a one-sided hammering?
Yeah, it was. I was starting to even forget what happened.
Or was that a draw? Did they get a draw on a replay and get hammered in the replay?
No, that was 2015.
Right.
I can't even... it might have been separate to any Kerry-Cork situation. Last year, then, he was kind of apologetic about it and was like, actually, no, I'm sorry for bigging you up. Clearly, you're not as good as we thought you were, and Kerry will win this weekend. And they didn't just win, they absolutely hammered them.
2017, 123 to 15 points. So not a close game.
No, not a lot closer than last year, though. So, what are we talking, 11 points, 17 points last year? I think it's going to close again this year. He's just basically... We'll just get to it now. We'll come back to it in the newspapers again. I really can't see any hope for Cork, is the headline for Dara O'Shea. I'll get through some of the quotes when we get into the newspapers, but no hope for Cork. Things there's some fantastic lines in it, really. The idea that if Cork were a boxer that had been retired years ago, they wouldn't have been able to find a promoter willing to put up the money to get them on the bill. He talks about the structural issues. He says Kerry weren't great against Clare in the end, and ordinarily that would make Cork's prices 6-1 on Saturday night, possibly worth a pop. But we know what we know from watching these two teams play each other over the past few years. I really can't see any way to give Cork a chance here. There's a lot more in it as well. This is one of my favourite analogies. Over the past decade, all belief has been squeezed out of Cork football like water from a wet cloth. Like that analogy.
So they're now just like a wasted sponge.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility any of this has any impact on Cork, that they're actually looking at this going, we're going to kill them?
Yeah.
We're just going to have to kill them.
What are you doing, Dara? That's the first thought I had this morning. What are you doing? Putting the pen to paper on this sort of stuff, giving Cork the opportunity to come back. This is not how a Yerring county is supposed to behave.
It's the anti-era.
It is the anti-era.
It's post-era.
Kerry have officially moved away from their roots. They've lost what they were all about. They were founded on the premise of Yerring.
He's gone off the reservation. He is a lone wolf. That is all. The rest of you are still doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing in your read columns in Kerry's eye. Kerry's eye? Mm-hmm. Kerry's eye? Mm-hmm. Okay, the eye of Kerry. Mm-hmm. Like the eye of Sauron.
Yeah. It's
all watching. Like the Skibbereen Eagle.
It knows the three-eyed raven. It sees all and hears all, and all its bigging up of Cork is correct. There is no way that, I guess it's kind of like the attendances thing we were talking about yesterday, that you have a good championship last year, the reaction to that is good attendances this year to a great championship last year or whatever it is. The reaction to Cork getting hammered by Kerry last year is columns like this year. That doesn't mean that it's going to be a similar sort of trouncing. We've heard crazy stories coming out about challenge games between Cork and some of the top teams in the country. That Cork are apparently winning these games.
They beat the Dubs.
Beat Roscommon, by all accounts. It is my favourite time of the year when the challenge game rumour mill starts doing the rounds, because everybody kind of goes to ground. Apparently that Dublin team is quite strong to beat. Of course, Dublin will be trying out different things, or tactically or whatever it may be. But
maybe Dublin are just a little bit off, and we've been massively overrating them on the back of 1-2 games against inferior opposition.
Well, who knows? But Cork still are the 12th best team in the country, as we've been establishing over the last couple of weeks. This is to say that they don't stand a prayer is I just think patently untrue.
Great show for you today. Here's what's coming up. Anthony Moyles is going to join us in studio after 8 o'clock to talk to us about the rest of the Gaelic football action this weekend. We'll delve into what case you might be able to make for the Cork footballers against Kerry this weekend. We'll also talk about Meath's chances against Dublin in some more detail and how you might go about it. Stephen Poacher didn't quite have the full answer for how you might if you were coaching against this Dublin team this year, go about trying to beat them. But he did say they look less invincible than they have done in previous seasons. I'm going to tell you the story of Michel Platini from Eoin at 7:50. We have Andy Lee and Mike Costello coming your way at around about 25 past 8. Going to look at the heavyweight situation and everything else that's going on in the world of boxing. And then a bit more Ascot coming your way from Tom Malone just after 9. And the sports news with Phil at 9:15. We'll get into the newspapers now. So I'm going to start with the Herald here. When defeat comes, Dubs won't see it. Alan Brogan, we were shocked in 2010. That was the day that they conceded the 5 goals. And immediately in the middle of that championship, they completely changed their style of play and went ultra defensive, which ultimately takes them to win in All-Ireland before they evolved their free-flowing style. And then Donegal knocked that on the head for a while. Low take on Royals' visit. Leinster Council is expecting over 40,000 for the first final in 5 years against rivals Meath. That 40,000 figure is interesting because it's not the same figure in all the papers today. And then this story is across all the papers as well. It's Dan McDonnell. Sorry, it's not across all the papers. It's Dan McDonnell's story across both the Indo and the Herald. FAI staff are bracing themselves for cutbacks as the Abbottstown hierarchy get to grips with the scale of the financial crisis facing Irish football. Apparently Uefa have come in and said that the FAI need to cut back on its contractors and its part-time employees. Worrying times, and reportedly morale, as you would expect in that circumstance, is low in Abbottstown.
Since you mentioned that attendance story, I might actually start with the Irish Daily Star, because their story on the top here is GAA bank on bumper 50,000 crowd for final. So you were saying there, the Jim Bulger quote, Leinster chairman, saying we'd hope to have 40 to 45,000 people showing up at Croke Park at the weekend, while Leinster GAA spokesperson John Hawley in the Irish Daily Star says a crowd in the high 40s or up towards 50,000 is anticipated. So John Hawley clearly a little bit more optimistic than Jim Bulger. Last year's Leinster final was 41,728. Surely Meath versus Dublin gets a bigger crowd than 41,000. That was Laois last year. Like, come on. Like, the idea of Dublin's home games in the quarter-final or the semi-final in Leinster being in Parnell Park would not be a ridiculous notion if this doesn't tip over 40,000 for a Leinster final against Meath. It's got to be something that they start looking at, because this thing is going to start plummeting even further, no? No, you can't. No, Parnell Park is gone. Their home ground is Croke Park. I think that... I'm not just talking about atmosphere, I'm talking about pure sort of economics.
I think is the breaking point not something around 22,000, 23,000. After that, you're...
Sure, well, okay, fair enough.
But anyway, I think that this crowd should be a bit better. Surely the Dubs fans are going to show up to rub it in Meath's faces. They haven't had the opportunity to do that all that often. One of the worst parts about Dublin being so amazingly good over the last while is that the Meath team haven't been good enough to put it up to them. Now they'll get to go and sing their anti-Meath songs that they've had in their back pocket for the last decade.
Yeah, for sure. It's the first time in years that they've come up against each other in the Leinster final. 2014, I think, was the last one. I should also mention just the main story on the back of the Irish Daily Star. It's a rip-off. Big money demand for Diop stuns United. So this is Manchester United going after Issa Diop. West Ham looking for €85 million, which is absolutely extortionate, to say the very least. This has just become a comical reality TV show that Manchester United are the central character and everybody's trying to perform extortion on them. That is exactly what this has become, and it's hilarious, really. There was talk of the London club already rejecting a swap deal with United's France winger Anthony Martial, heading in the opposite direction. Will West Ham not take Anthony Martial? Let's not forget how much Virgil van Dijk cost. It was around that amount of money for Issa Diop. It's hilarious if you're not a Manchester United fan. If you are a Manchester United fan, you must feel like you're in a cage of financial doom.
Well, it's never ending, and they seem to have loads of money, so...
The thing now is that Premier League clubs just don't need to sell.
No, that is exactly what's happened, because they all have their own money. Platini quiz, police question France legend over Qatar bid. This is Matt Lawton's story. And Morgan smashes his way to World Cup record, so Eoin Morgan from North County Dublin smashed 17 sixes, which was a World Cup record when up against Afghanistan yesterday. And Menton wants Royals to tap into heartbreak. Meath joint captain Brian Menton has revealed that last summer's single-point qualifier defeat by Tyrone was heartbreaking. I mean, that was the first time that we actually took Meath seriously that day. And they built on it. That's the most important thing, that it wasn't a flash in the pan, it wasn't just a one-off.
Yeah, for sure. The Irish Times, as we've already mentioned, leads with Darragh O'Shea's column. I really can't see any hope for Cork he says. Just a couple of the other lines I didn't get to a moment ago. He says, I saw a lot of people lamenting the state of Offaly hurling over the weekend. To me, Cork football is nearly worse.
Whoa!
After all, it is 21 years since Offaly won an All-Ireland in hurling. It's only 9 since Cork won Sam Maguire. And now they're downplaying Division 3 football. That is some drop. He's right, and I think what he means is the comparative fall
Division
and
3.
the rapid
Third
nature
tier.
of which it happened. It has happened a lot quicker for Cork, to be fair, and it is, I think, sad to see them down in Division 3. But I don't think being down in Division 3 is an accurate representation of where they're at, nor is it something that you can read into a whole pile.
No,
when
you've
it comes to the
a
football
couple
this
of
year.
bad league campaigns and suddenly you're in Division 3, but they'll come straight back out, right?
Yeah, like they've had good performances. They definitely will do that, and they've had good performances as well in Division 2, like putting it up to Donegal for a good, like they were better than Donegal for half of that game in the league. So that would suggest to me that they're able to go toe to toe when they feel like it. They clearly have the players to go toe to toe with a lot of teams in the country.
This level of sticking it to your neighbour when they're down is exactly what I expect from the Dulles fans, and that's why I think they will show up against Meath at the weekend.
Yeah, like
So it'll be like 5-17 to 3-8. It's going to be a good game.
do you think they'll concede 3 goals?
Yeah, I think that they probably won't be as tight at the back.
Is that not the very thing they need to work on, or is it more what Stephen Poacher was saying yesterday, finding that marquee forward? Or
I think that what
fine
Dublin
one.
are doing right now and what Dublin actually need to do and what they will do are different things.
yeah, it's true. Just a couple of other things that he touches on, kind of on why this has gone wrong for Cork, or the confusion as to why this has gone wrong for Cork. O'Shea points out that they've been a more All-Ireland under-21 final since 2010 than Kerry, for example. They should be doing much better than this. Nobody can really argue with that. He says that you've got a generation of Kerry players who have no idea what it is to fear Cork, and a generation of Cork players who haven't the first notion what it takes to be Kerry, which I guess is also true, but whether or not that's actually something you have to learn, or whether or not it's just one big winning mentality, I think they're not too different. And then also he talks about the management. He says, I don't know the politics in Cork, but even I could see that the standout candidate to manage the Cork football team at various times has been John Cleary. He never got the gig, and Cork are where they are. Cork always seems to be putting out fires, getting rid of lads without being sure whether they had an upgrade ready to go, and perhaps the succession plan over previous managers hasn't been up to scratch. The other story here in the Irish Times that it's carried across a lot of the newspapers this morning is Pádraig Joyce speaking yesterday. I don't know what that was.
Wow, it was
almost got attacked by a programme from the Liverpool versus Wolverhampton Wanderers, which would have been a rather grisly way to die.
The baseball bat over your head almost rolled over as well.
It's a ghost in the studio. It's
maybe there was an earthquake.
The ghost of Cork's past coming to attack Darragh O'Shea's column this morning. Pádraig Joyce, very interesting stuff. Talks about smartphones and communication in the dressing room with an underage team, and he says how it's such a bigger issue than he thought it was going to be, and this is something that's kind of been spoken about for the last couple of years. But he's also spoken about Galway at the weekend, and he says he's been involved in poor defeats over the years. The final one where they got bullied against Antrim in particular, it kind of happened again on Sunday, he says, in relation to getting bullied. In the second half, there was a disappointing side of it. There was no real fight for it. To be honest, from a Galway supporter's perspective, it was a game they should have won. It knocked them back a good bit now, so it's hard to see. They have to try to lift themselves and try and get back into it again. Just a complete collapse, he says. There was no real, I suppose, if you like to say, passion, or a bit of tracking runners, or a bit of hitting going in.
I mean, they're all different things. Tracking runners isn't passion, right? It's like this is something we do. These are our core beliefs. A bit of hitting. I mean, maybe a bit of hitting is passion, but it's also we have a physical game plan. We're ready to meet fire with fire, and we are the one who knocks. But
yeah, he says you can have all the talent in the world, but you need the work rate with that. And if you don't have that, you will struggle.
Well, that's different as well.
It's strong stuff from Pádraig Joyce.
Yeah, he's lashing them. He's lashing his former teammate that they soldiered together with and won 2 All-Irelands with.
Somebody was making a point on the show, was it Johnny Ward a few months ago, saying that if something starts to go wrong for this Galway team, the criticism would be quite ferocious, because it might be because of the style of play, that the results can only take you so far, and that once that Jenga piece started to come out, the whole thing would collapse in terms of how they would be viewed in the county. So be interested to see how many more dissenting voices we have from the coterie of Galway legends over the next couple of weeks.
Bonner's impossible to replace, says Sheedy. Gaelic Games Liam Sheedy admits that there is no like-for-like replacement for unique cruciate victim Patrick Bonner-Maher. So obviously everybody in Tipp heartbroken because Bonner was back playing his best hurling. He looked sharp, he looked fit, he looked effective. He looked like he was fulfilling all of the potential that we knew he had when he was one of that coterie of under-21s who burst onto the scene in 09. City's new hot rod, so get ready for your hot rod puns. Man City are set to make 62.5 million Rodri, their first deal of the transfer window. So Rodri was at Atletico Madrid as a kid, got released. Atletico bought him back for 20 million last summer, put him in the team for a year, and presto, he's ready for the Premier League. And the buyout clause is 62.5 million. They're like, yeah, we will pay that.
100%. Brilliant piece of business. 23 years old, I think. Like the question, one of the very few question marks for on Manchester City in the Premier League this year has been who comes in when Fernandinho is injured, who comes in when Fernandinho retires, and Rodri is exactly that sort of ready-made replacement. It's hilarious when you look at the different sort of transfer stories in the papers this morning. 62.5 million for Rodri, 85 million for Issa Diop. Manchester United just must be looking at this thinking to themselves, what do we have to do?
Get somebody who knows what they're doing to be in charge of transfer policy.
That would be a good start, potentially. If they could turn back the clocks and do that.
Find out the players with buyout clauses, match the buyout clause if that's the way you want to do your business, as opposed to getting involved in this auction against themselves. They're literally bidding against themselves. I mean, oh no, did you ring him with a bigger offer? Yeah, oh shit, sorry.
Just a guy with putting his two hands up at the back of the auction hall. The back page of the Irish Independent is a couple of stories you already mentioned. Dan MacDonald's story there about FAI set to field the UEFA squeeze, and rivals Dublin and Meath will do battle at half-full Croker. The other story here on the back of the Irish Independent is Paris Saint-Germain ready to let Neymar go if they pocket world record fee. They say that Paris Saint-Germain will not pursue Paul Pogba, but they do remain interested in United goalkeeper David De Gea. But if they want to sell Neymar, who's going to stump up with the cash? They want to take €222 million, £199 million to persuade. That's what it'll take to persuade them to sell Neymar. Barcelona then are interested in actually signing him and understood to be offering players such as Philippe Coutinho and Ousmane Dembele in part exchange. You take either of those for Neymar?
I would take a handful of magic beans for Neymar at this point.
200 million pounds is absolutely ridiculous. He's not worth that.
So here's the thing, unless Barcelona know that they can get that money back instantaneously from one of their sponsors through some kind of chicanery, then it's basically a free player who you think that you might be able to get back to a level that he was at when he was playing second fiddle to Messi. And actually, he was useful when he was second fiddle to Messi. Although, did he win a Champions League?
No.
Right.
No, sure, Real Madrid won all the Champions Leagues when Neymar was playing with Messi, basically.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be going back if I was Barcelona. I would be desperately trying to get him to Real Madrid if I was Barcelona. Like, oh, this guy's really good, we should sign him. Yes, we should really do him. Oh, I can't wait to get back a Barcelona shirt. And Real Madrid like, ooh, we need this guy. I mean, that seems to be how Florentino Perez does business. The Examiner this morning, the Bonner breach. Sheedy vows Maher absence won't prove knockout blow for Tipperary. So it's Bonner holding his cruciate. I think everybody kind of feared the worst when that happened as well. So Kieran Shannon winning this All-Ireland will be Tipp's greatest feat. European check-ins, Cardiff or Luxembourg date for Cork, while Dundalk face Riga, so the draws were all made yesterday. Miracle Man Toomey looking to reinvent himself as a trainer, and Maximus in Arizona star for O'Brien on day one of Royal Ascot. We'll get Tom Malone's view on Royal Ascot a little bit later on.
The back page of the Sun this morning is give the Pog a bonus, £3.8 million United loyalty prize. Paul Pogba in line for £3.78 million loyalty bonus for Manchester United 3 days after declaring he needs a new challenge. It's funny how those bonuses crop up.
It's funny how they're called loyalty bonuses as well, because they're not. They're like contractual things that allows the club to stagger payment. So it's basically wages. He showed up this year. You owe him his wages. That's what that is. But they put it as a loyalty bonus to try and Man United leak this, or whoever is leaking this for whatever reason.
Correction on Neymar, 2015 Champions League.
Oh yeah, okay. There you go.
So your argument is just on its head.
Well,
good thing Wikipedia exists.
All right, so the Times Ireland, again, counting down the days for the last few Times Ireland editions. The Six Machine, Governor Morgan, breaks world record with 17 maximums in brutal innings of 148 as England beat Afghanistan. And Galway were bullied, says angry Joyce. Poor Joyce, two-time All-Ireland winner with Galway, has accused the county players of being bullied in Roscommon and lacking passion in the Connacht final. You've heard that from Owen already.
The Racing Post goes with Lionesses eyeing third victory in toughest test yet. They're up against Japan at 8 o'clock tonight.
I didn't realise that Joyce was a candidate for the senior gig. Some supporters would like to see Joyce and his under-20 management colleague John Dively, who has been successful as a Stickers and Cup manager at UCD, step up to replace Kevin Walsh as senior manager.
That'd be a really exciting management ticket. I think it's a little bit too soon to say that the Kevin Walsh thing has run its course until we actually see how this season concludes. But if their season goes out with a whimper, those discussions are only going to intensify. That speculation will only intensify. And you've got the fact that you've got an absolute legend in Pádraig Joyce who's there and probably eager to take over at some point.
Yeah, well, so he was asked about that, and he said, it's hard to know. It's something years ago I thought I would like to do, but this, so he's in charge of the under-20s. This under-20 competition kind of suited me with the time frame, but if you go to senior, it's a different level, and at the minute I'm very busy with my own business and work and young kids. It's something I would look at, but it's hard to see where a man would get time for it because it's full-time. So that's not a no. It's like, if Galway want me, they're going to have to put a very good support team in around me.
Back page at Guardian this morning is Majestic Morgan on top of the world, captain breaking the ODI record with 17 sixes in a brutal 148 from 71 balls. And the main story then, Platini detained over award of Qatar 2022 World Cup. We'll come back to that in a moment.
Yeah, okay, so that is your back pages headlines this morning. So I guess for me the most interesting stuff is the fallout from Maher, because here we have a situation where his performances might have been a little bit underrated by people. Just the kind of the central cog that he was in the wheel. Now, Tipp are saying that they're going to be able to deal with his absence from the team, and obviously they do have as good a collection of forwards and some forwards coming back who will be able to fill the jersey, but whether or not it's filling the actual role that Maher did, I'm looking forward to the hurling show this week to see how the lads exactly parse what Maher's replacement might look like, or how you make up for the job that he did on that team. But I think it's pretty obvious that when you have a hurler like him, he's got a fairly unique skill set, and what he brings to the game and what he changes about your game plan is very hard to replace.
It seems that way. It seems that he has a particular set of talents that are very, very hard to find elsewhere in any squad around the country. We're not saying that he is the best hurler in the Tipperary team. He's an outstanding hurler, brilliant hurler, but we often look at someone like Seamus Callanan or Bubbles O'Dwyer as the real spark in this Tipperary forward line. But what is the engine of the forward line? What is the most unique part of it? It actually turns out, from just listening to some of the commentary over the last couple of days, that Patrick Maher may actually be that person. And who do you mould into that person? Do you have a lot of good young hurlers in Tipperary coming through? Are they fixed in that way to replace him? It doesn't actually look like they are. So this has completely changed the discussion around Tipperary in a way that I didn't think it would. Like, on face value, when you look at Maher and Carl Barrett getting injured at the weekend, you're like, oh, they're two huge injuries. It now seems that one of them is a much bigger one in terms of the absence that will leave on the team.
I think Barrett will be back by the time they reach the semi-final.
Obviously, in terms of the magnitude of the injury, they're obviously one of the smaller, but in terms of if they were the same injury, it seems that Maher is actually a bigger loss than some people think, despite the fact that Barrett has been outstanding when he's been on song.
We've got an Irish news for you as well. Mayo vulnerable to a shock at the hands of Down, says Clark. So I don't know if that's Marty Clark or one of the other Clarks from Down, but Mayo are vulnerable to a shock at the hands of Down is the back page headline on the Irish news. We'll talk about that game with Anthony Moyles a little bit later on. We didn't talk about the Antrim-Kildare game, which I think is all set up for a bit of a shock. A little tight pitch, tiny crowd, which will all be Antrim, let's face it.
And they've been okay. They've been good. Like, there's obviously question marks around Tyrone, but when you look at that Antrim-Tyrone game, the question was, did Tyrone just take their foot off the pedal? I think there's also an element of that Antrim actually have a bit of a pointy end to them. They can cause damage. And if Kildare have any frailties defensively, which I think they do, then I think they could be in a spot of bother here at times. I didn't actually think of that initially, and then you mentioned it, and I was like, this is actually all set up for a perfect banana skin-like qualifier, especially given Corrigan Park.
Yeah. What else have you got first?
Will you get into Michel Platini?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I guess the question always arises. It's been a few years since we've actually had Michel Platini and scandal in the headlines, and how we arrive here is always something I'm intrigued with Michel Platini. Of course, like just going back to some of the great images I could find online yesterday, we all know how great the footballer he was, Michel Platini, 3 Ballon d'Or time winner. Played in Ireland, of course. This is a great picture of him shaking hands with Liam Brady in 1981, I think. It says 1980 at the bottom of them, but I think that is the game in Lansdowne Road in 1981, in which, of course, Ireland crush France on a 3-2 scoreline. Platini did score in the game. Platini would then go on to replace Liam Brady at Juventus. So just looking back on his international career, it's mad when you actually just look at what he played, who he played for, not only for his clubs, but for his country. So his international career comes to an end in 1988. Yes, I know he stopped playing for France in 1987, but he did play one more international game in 1988. And we can look at this, because this is a match report from Kuwait against USSR. in November 27, 1988. And you can see boxed in there is Michel Platini, who played 21 minutes for that Kuwait team under George Armstrong, who was the manager, the Arsenal legend who made 500 appearances for the club. This is part of a USSR tour of the Middle East. They go from country to country playing different teams, and Michel Platini is invited as a guest of honour to play for Kuwait, and it is down as an official cap. This is from rusteam.ru, a very reputable website.
That's the Russian team who we played in the Euros. You can many recognisable names there: Belanov, Mikhailchenko, Protasov.
Two prominent threads between Michel Platini and Ireland right there. Like, if we go into a little bit more detail on this website to give us a bit more of a description on Michel Platini's appearance here. So this is clearly translated. So he drove to Kuwait, heading to Qatar for the Asian Championships, in which he was invited to take part in the opening ceremony. So this is all very interesting. This is the 1988 Asian Cup, which was on in Qatar. And there's a bit more information as well on this, because the Saudi Arabian Football Federation has a report on his appearance in Doha, watching Saudi Arabia beat Syria 2-0 in the opening game of the Asian Cup in 1988. Down there, the newly retired international player came out with a good impression about the competition in Asia. There is a guest of honour from the people in Qatar. So he got to know people in Qatar quite early in his career. Also, after his playing career, we all know that he coached France. But it is his administration career that we want to get into today. So 1998 to 2002, a learning game for Michel Platini, I think it's fair to say. Obviously heading up the executive committee for the 1998 World Cup, learning from the best in Sepp Blatter. 2002 comes along, he joins UEFA and FIFA's executive committees, and then also joins the UEFA technical committee. Then June 2006, he tries to challenge for the UEFA presidency. Johansson, the Swede, who is at the top of the game right there, in the hot seat for about 17 years in fact. We get Platini, who steps up to become head of UEFA. January 2007, he becomes president of UEFA, living the good life, as we've seen. He was in Dublin a couple of times. We can bring up a couple of images of him outside Abbottstown at the FAI headquarters here.
Oh, who's that?
Who's that on the left-hand side? The non-bearded gentleman with the bootcut jeans and Converse. That is, of course, our own Nathan Murphy, as we can see, meeting the man Michel Platini. A good bit of Mayo humour there, making the Frenchman smile. Also, of course, rub shoulders with some of the great football administrators, making John Delaney laugh there, and making John Delaney laugh a little bit more, and Stan.
Stan, wow.
His threads with Ireland are clear. So we're in a situation now with Michel Platini up until yesterday as to what exactly happened to Michel Platini again. So he's serving a 4-year ban because he received a 2 million Swiss franc payment from FIFA, which was an advisory payment. Now this came from a contract between Platini and Sepp Blatter.
Boris Johnson.
We can see Boris Johnson on screen there, which was signed in 1999, ended in 2002, when he became a member of FIFA's executive committee. Of course, this was very curious timing because the money actually didn't land into his account until a long time after that. Just a reminder of what CAS said. It said it was not until the 1st of February 2011, 4 months prior to the FIFA presidential elections, and at a moment when Sepp Blatter and Mohammed bin Hammam were both still candidates to the election, that FIFA paid the amount of 2 million Swiss francs. Curious, given that the agreement and the work that was done ended in 2002, and hence we had his 4-year ban. The current situation then, which kind of reached the head yesterday, was clarified by Blatter's team that it was in no way an arrest. He was being questioned under police custody only for technical reasons. Now, the technical reasons that the France financial prosecutor outlined was on the grounds of private corruption, criminal association, influence peddling, and benefiting from influence peddling relating to the 2018 and 2022 World Cups, the awarding of the tournaments to Russia and the awarding of the tournaments to Qatar. It's very, very interesting now. A lot of people will have seen this yesterday, but just a reminder in case you missed it, in terms of the other people that were detained for questioning. You had Sophie Dion, who was a former sports advisor of Nicolas Sarkozy when he was the French Premier, and you also had Claude Guéant, who was a former Secretary General of the Élysée under Sarkozy as well at the time. And this, of course, reminds us of this infamous lunch that we all know about now, which happened on the 23rd of November 2010. As I like to call it, the most incredible episode of Come Dine With Me that ever happened. So at a lunch in Paris on the 23rd of November 2010, we have Sarkozy, we have Platini, we have the Crown Prince of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and we have a representative of Paris Saint-Germain. 9 days later, who gets awarded the World Cup of 2022? it is, of course, Qatar. So it raises a lot of questions at that moment, because 6 months later, you got the Qatar Sports Investment QSI taking over Paris Saint-Germain. You have beIN Sports, Qatar-owned, buying Ligue 1 rights. Apparently, Nicolas Sarkozy was not a fan whatsoever of Canal+, who had rights at the time. In 2011 then, you have Qatar Airways buying a load of planes from Airbus, which is based in Toulouse. They buy another batch of planes in 2017. And then in 2012, you have this company, Burda, which is a Qatar sportswear company, and their CEO becomes Laurent Platini, and you'll never guess who his father is. Now, of course, Platini has denied that any of this is coincident. He said, I voted for a region that never received a World Cup. That was my philosophy. Not because Sarkozy had lunch with me. I have enough personality to decide what is good for football, not for the President of France or the Prime Minister of Great Britain, who also wanted my vote. So no suggestion whatsoever that Michel Platini was ever influenced in his decision to vote for Qatar 2022. But we do know he had a lovely lunch with some very important people.
All right. Ahead of Sligo's Nicky Rackett Cup final with Armagh this Saturday after the balls, Dahi Boland caught up with the Sligo manager Dahi Handi to discuss just how far the county has come in such a short space of time.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
I think we've caught everyone by surprise. I don't think anybody thought that we'd be in the position that we would be this year. Coming up from the Maher last year, and I was just thinking about there this morning, like 18 months ago, at the start of the National League in 2018, Sligo was the worst ranked hurling team in the country because it goes in league standings from the previous year. So if someone could correct me if I'm wrong there, but that's what I was told. So I suppose we've kind of made huge strides in the 18 months in terms of where we've come from and what we've done. And I mean, I looked at the poster last night in our own dressing room about the results that the lads have gained over the last, say, 5 or 6 weeks. And like, there's been some serious good wins there, you know. And if you compare that, like, we played the likes of Armagh and Tyrone in challenge games before Christmas time, and I suppose they were the springboard for us kind of realising the pace of the game, how much quicker it was at this level, and also the standard too. So, you know, they were hugely beneficial to us, and the lads have kind of they copped onto that really early, and they've just worked their socks off since then, you know.
You get more of that good stuff on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/off the ball. Anthony Moyles is with us to talk about some Gaelic football this weekend. We had Stephen Poacher on yesterday talking about what you would do if you were in the Meath camp trying to beat the Dubs this weekend. What would you do?
Hey, thanks for that, Chair. Straight off the bat, what would I do? A couple of things I'd do. I think they're going to go at it. I think they're just going to, and Andy McEntee has kind of said it this week. He said they're just going to go in and just give it a rattle, right? So I think there's a couple of things from a point of view of actually trying to pick out some weaknesses in the Dublin team. Like, I looked at the team that obviously started against Kildare. There's serious potency up front. So I think their defence, and this is, a lot of people have spoken about this, I think that's where they can be potentially got at, okay? I think Keane O'Sullivan and I think Fitzsimons are two that you really have to focus on. I think O'Carroll, the Carroll situation, Philly McMahon. I think there's just a little bit of, I'd say, worry in their own camp about their defence. It doesn't seem settled. Like, O'Carroll missed a lot of football, and I know he's an unbelievable player, but it's still, when you're away for that amount of time,
years.
Yeah, and then you slot back into the Premier team and around the country, coming up against the Premier forwards and teams who are going to try to expose you. It's a lot of pressure on yourself, and also it's a lot of kind of pressure around you. You be in your full back line or your goalkeeper and stuff like that. So personally, I think he may change things, Cavan. I think Conlon is a major threat against them because not only can he score, but he is lightning quick. He's small, he's very fast, he has unbelievable 2 feet, he's very, very quick on the turn. And if I was me, I'd just stick him straight in on Mick Fitzsimons. And I'd say to him, every single time you get the ball, you're taking him on in space. I'd actually mark Cillian O'Sullivan, So I'd put Brian McMahon on him and I'd mark him. And I'd say when he goes to drop off you, you go back onto him. And you make your runs from being in a position where you're actually standing beside him. Because O'Sullivan wants to sit back. He wants to be able to survey. He wants to be able to call the plays. If they're holding the ball up, he wants to do that. If they're starting to increase the pace of the ball, he wants to do that. He's a main spine of a caller of plays and setting of tone for the team. And I think you have to have him under pressure. He's had multiple hamstring issues, and I would really, really test him.
Get him in sprints early.
Get him in sprints early. Get him to have to turn to actually chase you. Engage him early. Don't allow him just be this out ball and be able to dictate the pace and the tempo of the game. Now that may mean that you end up essentially with two guys on you as McMahon, but that's okay. That's
great.
That's great, absolutely. If Dublin want to do that, I think Meath have to expose.
Can I just say the other alternative is that you don't end up with two men on you, and you're essentially going man to man on the rest of the pitch. So. While you're delighted about one of your fast guys being on Fitzsimons, then their fast guys are also being left alone. So you've no sweeper system. You're going straight up. We're pushing up.
I don't think Meath will deploy a sweeper system. I don't think it will. I think it'll go against what Andy believes in. I think it'll go against essentially what Meath football believe in. I don't think we've done it well over years. I think we will get players back and bodies back, but essentially I think they'll decide, no, we're going to try to do and go and push up on them and press them high up the field as much as we can. So you saw a little inkling of it against Donegal in the league final, okay? So they squeezed Donegal in that first 15-20 minutes and they cleaned Donegal out. Now it was extremely high tempo game. Like, it's a massively high tempo game. You need unbelievable conditioning and fitness to do it, because you're squeezing right up onto the keeper, you're pressing right into the corners, and you're trying to turn them down there, which Kildare did, by the way, pretty successfully at times, and just didn't capitalise on it. And when you do that, much the same as the Donegal game, if you turn guys over there and if you get opportunities, the first thing, the way I'd be talking to the forwards is, a point is the least you can expect. Is the least you should be looking for. Anytime you get around a cornerback or a fullback, or you manage to get one-on-one with a guy and you slip him, you have to be thinking goal here in this situation. You have to be thinking every single opportunity we get. It's okay for Dublin to kick points, but we nearly have to be thinking, if we're getting 10 to 12 opportunities in the first half to score, we have to be thinking at least 50% of them have to be goal chances. Now, eventually you may fist the ball over the bar, but you have to bring it in that close that you're thinking, okay, it's not on, I'm just going to tip it over.
Yeah.
But you have to be exposed. So, you go back to the Kildare game, I think it was 12-7 at the start of the second half. Kildare had got a couple of scores just before half-time. Now, people can
missed
say...
two goal chances as well.
Yeah, and missed a really bad goal chance. Like, it should have been a goal.
Yeah.
It should have brought it to 12-10. All of a sudden now, you're kind of saying to yourself, okay, I'm not saying they would have beaten Dublin.
But it's a different game.
It is a different game, and it raises questions. And all of a sudden, Kildare feel, whoa, we've got something for this. The times I played against Dublin, when you realise against Dublin that they're going to start fast and that you may end up 5, 6, 7 points behind, you're actually okay. You're okay in that moment. There's no panic. I remember, I think it was maybe it was 06 or we were 6 down, or 07, and there was no panic in the backline. There was no panic in our team, because we were like, this is to be expected, and they're not going to keep at this pace. Now, this team essentially can, right? But they still do. You even saw against Kildare, the wheel, the gear drops down. And I don't think it's because of, people would say, oh, well, they're already home and hosed. I think it is hard to keep that level of tempo up. So when you do get that opportunity then to get the ball and create some of your own scores, you have to make sure that you're really, really optimising every opportunity you have. So that's, from a forward's point of view, you have to really instill that. And really then it's down to probably getting a bit of luck and trying to, I think you have to get at least 3 goals. You have to get at least 3 goals. You have to score at least 3-10, because they're going to get at least 17 or 18 or 19 points. And you also have to accept they're going to kick these points. So kick-out strategy then is going to be vital. And that's, I think, Offaly exposed Colgan and goal for Meath. Now, Offaly did it very, very well. I was very impressed with Offaly and Navan, how they pushed up and how they squeezed the kick out. They were really, really good at it, and Dublin do it very, very well. They really do it well. And Meath don't have... Menton is a big man in midfield. He's about 6'2", 6'3". Adam Flanagan is a huge man. But if you put Flanagan in there, you lose a bit of kind of ability and momentum, or not momentum, but
mobility.
Yeah, exactly, mobility around the pitch. So you're either playing him as a decoy to kick kickouts to, if you want to do that, because you're going to need something to try to break that. And then, of course, Dublin have Fenton in midfield.
It seems that, like, against the kick-out, against Cluxton, that is probably the best way to do it, though, isn't it? Like, it is a better alternative than allowing them to build through the phases, to allow them to actually get into a position where they're going to kick points at will, because they will do that when they have the ball in hand and when they're hand passing. Like, force them to kick the ball down the throat. I mean, that is the best way for me to win primary possession, is it not?
I'm not telling any tales here, but I think Meath, you can see it throughout the league if you watch the how Meath are trying to play closely. They're doing a very, very high press. They're trying to force you out to the sideline to try and either trap you over on the sideline or make you make an error over there and just have to kick it long or 50-50 it or whatever it is, or have to go back and start again. So they're trying to squeeze you up there. So, and that's where you have to do it. I think if you allow Dublin to come on to you, they kick the score and then they're already set.
Yeah.
And they're already saying, right, kick it out now. And we're all here.
Yeah.
So you've a double whammy. You're under pressure twice, and I think it's very, very, very difficult unless you have an extremely good goalkeeper who has an ability to, ping those passes, and that's one or two in the country, by the way. So I think you have to do it there. You have to have Dublin in a situation where they're spending an inordinate amount of time in their own half rather than your half.
Which means pushing up and being aggressive.
Yeah, and for that you need a panel. For that you need your 6 subs. You really do. Against Donegal, Graham Riley came on way too early. Brian McMahon was lost, and he didn't have Conlon because he didn't really put the hand up. I think he was only... So I'm not saying Conlon is the panacea for Meath, but what I'm saying is that he now... You're starting to get options. Like 2 or 3 years ago, if anyone asked me, I'd say, oh yeah, listen, Meath have a chance. But you probably had 12 guys on the panel who were up to the ability, right? Now you have 16, 17, 18, you actually have them conditioned. Like, there was only one player injured training for Meath before the Carlow game. Like, that's out of a squad of 30 odd, there was only one guy who was Pádraig Harnan. That's a phenomenal level of guys who are fit. Like, if you think about that, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that they're just prancing around and training. It means that their conditioning levels are so high now due to the work of all the conditioning team and John Coughlin and guys like this who have got them into this position over the last number of years, that they're getting to the Dublin level, because Dublin have all that down. That's all hat to them. They're able to do stuff like layering on, scenario training, all that different stuff. And that's where the rest of the country have to get to. Some of them are there. But Meath have to get the conditioning, all that, and you need to then have at least 5 or 6 guys who can come in and make a difference.
One of the points that Stephen Poacher made was that Mayo get close to that and they can get them to 71 minutes, 72 minutes, 73 minutes, but at the end, Dublin grind them down because their subs who are coming on are the same level as the players who are going off.
Yeah.
Even Mayo didn't have that at their absolute peak. The subs who were coming on just weren't at the same level, or somebody had to play the full 70 minutes, 75 minutes against, so you'd be marking Conley for half it and somebody else who's just as good, not quite, but maybe you're up against Conley and Kilkenny.
Yes.
But in the 75th minute you might be a little bit tired and you miss a tackle or you foul and suddenly that's the winning of the game.
Yes, yeah. And that's where you need, essentially the panel all at that massive level. You need to be able to bring guys on who can not only make a difference and make an impact from a forward's point of view. Like, if I was a guy who was after doing 40 or 45 or 50 minutes at an intense game and then I saw the likes of Graham Riley coming on with 15, 20 minutes to go fresh, I wouldn't particularly fancy that coming on to me. And that's that's the opposite with if you were, after seeing off Connolly and then someone like Costello comes onto you, you're like, Jesus, do we really need this? So that you're always hoping that someone who's coming on is not to the same level. But Dublin have had that. Meath, I think they're getting there. I still think they're a year or two away from having that really formidable 20, where you're kind of going, it's really a toss of a coin, whether he's 15 or whether he's 19.
Now, the other thing that the Poacher said was interesting was he feels that they're not at the same level as they were when they had their best team, which was the Paul Flynn at his peak, Connolly at his peak, Bernard Brogan at his peak, that the next generation haven't quite hit those same heights just yet. And that's a fair point. Like, Conor Callaghan looks really, really good, but we don't know what he's going to be just yet. We know that he can influence games. in patches. We don't know that he can be a man of the match performance over 75 minutes. Costello, this seems to be his year. Mannion's obviously really good, but he's not quite as good as Bernard was at his absolute peak. So they're just a little bit behind.
Yeah, like I heard Stephen saying that yesterday, and I went back and looked at, like, you know, you have your Scully and your Howard, who are essentially carbon copies of kind of like, you know, say like Flynn, and say McCarthy or someone else, whoever was in that half forward line in the days, a number of years ago. So Brian Cullen, say, right? They're your workers, okay? Your link men. You know, you bring Kilkenny out then just to control the play out around, and then you've got O'Callaghan, Mannion and Costello. Like, it's still pretty formidable, if you ask me. Mannion, I think, is an unbelievable player. I think he can skin you. I think he's got strength. He's got power, both feet. I think Costello is a massive confidence player. I think there is a bit of a chink there with him. He's yet to really, I think,
he started 2 championship games.
Yeah, so
when you think about it, like 4 All-Ireland medals and started 2 championship games.
I'd be focusing on him. You know, I would definitely be focusing on him. If I was Meath, I'd be focusing on him. How they get their matchups. Like, you want Keoghan to be able to man mark, but then you also want Keoghan. If you watch the last game, Keoghan was at the heart of nearly everything that Meath did
forward
well.
at times.
Yeah, like, he was phenomenal, you know, and he's breaking forward now, which he hasn't been able to do the last, because mostly the last number of years he was told, listen, Mark is the most dangerous man, and he did it, you know, but you need him, you need that drive he does so well.
Is there a shout to put someone like him in midfield at times, just to allow him to have the biggest impact in the game? Because obviously at the start of the year you put him in your top 10 footballers, and it's only now that the rest of us are actually seeing Meath in full championship games that we actually realise
I was right.
We'll give you this one, just how brilliant he's been in 2019 especially. Like, he's a gifted player. He's definitely the one player, there might be a few more that you could say he's as good as somebody that Dublin have. Yeah. How do you get the most out of that? Because as you say, the man marking thing could be a huge danger.
It could be, you know, because you rob Peter to pay Paul. So I think you have to give him some freedom, but at the same time, would you put him onto Will Macaulay? Because when you're put into a role that you're not used to yourself, right? So you're taken out of a 6 and you're put into an 8 or a 9. You'll think, oh, I have to play the 8 or a 9 the way I think I should be playing it, and you could end up just marking him.
Yeah.
Instead of actually saying, no, I play this well from here, and albeit, yes, I know I have to do a bit of but I can get free from here. Because I think what he's doing well is he's coming onto the play late, and he's linking it, and he's getting in around the back of stuff, you know, so all of a sudden he's popping up. He's an intelligent player, so he knows where the space is. And then he's also excellent when he gets in there, because he gets his head up and he passes the ball, which is what Meath are going to do. Meath are going to have to look to literally pass the ball into the net. So what I mean by that is no glory shots, no 25-yard blasters. They're going to have to be so in tune with what's going on and see the passes and be calm when they're in there, that it goes back to my point of, no, there's nothing else all. We just stick it over the bar and we reset. You know, like, it has to be a calm and controlled performance for them to get within 6 points. I'm talking about here, and to do that is a big thing. You know, it's like, the difference between losing from 0 to 6 and losing from 6 to 12 is massive. You know, you start pushing out to 7, 8, 9, 10 points, like that's all of a sudden a beating.
Well, you've got to somehow pick them all up in 10 days so that they're ready to go again, and they're tuned into the next game, which is knockout, get into the Super 8. So, like, it's not make or break, but it could easily, like, a hammering in this game, you can easily see them losing against one of the good teams who are left in the Super 8. Just a final point, if when you're talking about man marking, and yet also you want, is man marking Mannion the right thing then? Because then actually,
I think so,
because he goes back a good bit. So if you have somebody who's willing to run forward, it's obviously one of the strengths of Mannion's game that you see him tackling back in the left corner back position, and then, you know, 14 seconds later he's run 100 metres and he's fisting the ball over the crossbar. But if you have somebody who's dragging him to the left corner back position who's actually good when they get there, that's different.
It is different. I think he does that at, you know, opportunistic times, you know, when he has to, you know, as well. I don't think he spends a massive amount of time down there. He's not like your Scully or your Howard, you know. He wants to be. They want him further up the field. But I think you're right. Yes, you could put him under the pressure and make him go that way. Lavin, to be fair, is quite an athletic player, Seamus Lavin. McGill will stay at home. and he'll probably take Costello or O'Callaghan. He's big and strong and well able, very, very mobile. Like the Meath defence is actually, you know, they conceded something like 3 scores less in the league this year than last year on average, which is actually quite a big amount. You know, when you look at it, like it is a big amount. It's quite an improvement, but I think a lot of that year has started because of the pressure up front, because of the pressure that they're applying up there, and he has definitely gone for a player who has not only the stamina and the speed to do that up there, but also a little bit of smarts to do it, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're tackling the man. It means that you're bringing the man to an area where they don't want to be. You're bringing the ball to an area where Dublin don't want to have it. If you remember Dublin, they would kick it short, they come down and they transfer it into the middle, and then they come down the middle hard at you, and then they'd look to switch it again, and they'd have players coming out to give it to Kilkenny. What you'd essentially want to do is just say, you can take that ball out under the Hogan stand and keep it there if you want. We're not going to let you come back in here, and drive them down that way, and try to bring them, corral them into areas where they don't necessarily want to be. I think if Meath can try to control the ball in a sense, they will have opportunities, because the idea with that is when you get the ball, then when you turn it over, it has to be quickly transferred in. Now Meath will have no problem kicking the ball. Transfer it in, and you have the likes of O'Connell in then, standing on his own potentially. Maybe he has 2 lads on him, maybe he has 1 lad on him. But if he has 2 lads on him now, all of a sudden you're saying, okay, we have a man free here. So you have to ask questions. And I think it's space for the forwards, taking them on as much as you can, and then it is going to be an unbelievable, you know, kind of outpouring of stress on the body for each Meath player. They're going to have to go to a place that they probably have never been before. And they are going to have to do it again and again and again, because Dublin will score. They will get points. And you're going to have to realise that this is going to happen. But you're just going to have to continue to go for as long as you can, and then hope that the 6 guys who come on, or 5 guys who come on, whatever it is, are going to make a big impact when they do come on.
So a 6-point win for Dublin, is that...
Yeah, like when I look at the forward line, I know what you're saying, and I know what Stephen was saying about they're not yet, but like... O'Callaghan has that ability in him. You know, he has that ability.
Look, he could be the best player that they've ever had. His immediate first 2 seasons in the senior team have been sensational.
Yeah.
You would just say that he's not at Diarmuid Connolly's level yet, for example, because he hasn't had the opportunity to. And it's not a criticism, it's just that the maturing process hasn't finished for him.
Yeah, and like if I was... You know, if I think if we were in the Dublin camp and if we were sitting around Jim Gavin and the guys, like there is a little bit of... It's not new. There's not a lot of new players, right? But there's like, I think from 8 and 9, you know what you're at there, right? Macaulay is there. Fenton is I think the most formidable player in the whole country, right? And he's a guy then that you can hang your hat on. You can say, well, listen, if things are going bad, this guy's going to bail me out.
Yeah.
So one of the major worries would be, from a Meath point of view, is how do you counteract him? Right, you know, it is going to be a big deal, because he comes up in big moments for Dublin in various different places.
Has a quiet day and kicks 4 points.
Yeah. Then you've got the half back line. You know, you've McCarthy and McCaffrey, who are going to cause you major issues with their athleticism and stuff. But I think there's a few little notches in around there that you can get at, right? But the forward line has an ability that if it clicks, it could absolutely kill you too. So I think you have to man up. You have to. I don't think Meath can do, as Eoin says. You can't concede. You cannot concede. You can't concede to Cluxton. You have to have a tactic where you're saying, we're going to try and press you as much as we can at the far end of the pitch. Now, I heard Stephen's point yesterday, which I thought was a very good point, what he mentioned about Tyrone. You will at times, and this goes back to the Meath League final against Donegal. When you expend that type of energy for 15 or 16 or 17 or 20 minutes, you might just have to make a call where it says, we're just going to hold on to the ball as much as we can for a few minutes. We're going to just get a breather here, because we've done so much. Now, the attraction might be, Jesus, let's keep going, like we're going really well here.
That's last year's All-Ireland final was the point he was talking about.
Correct. Yeah. He was saying, which he was quite right, take the foot off the gas a bit. Not take the foot off the gas, you don't do that, but you actually just control the ball a bit more in your own half and maybe make Dublin come out a bit more. Because Dublin have an ability, and if you see it, where they'll make a call and they'll all retreat behind the ball. So if they feel you're getting a run on them at all, they'll retreat, they'll say, come on, and then they'll rob you, and then they'll counter-attack. You know, so if they're retreating behind the ball, say, fine, you can stay there and we'll stay here, and actually make them come back out.
Is Dean rocketing back into the starting 15?
Don't see it. You know, again, like I think Rock is an amazing player. I think he's fantastic from frees and stuff like that. But, you know, if I was the opposition manager, I'd be saying he is a weak link that I think I can expose.
Costello's just as good on the frees as him?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. I think Costello then just gives you that bit more of a threat. But like at the same time, you've made a great point there. 2 championship matches, 2 championship starts. Like that's you're all of a sudden, whatever about the league, right, and doing it against oppositions in the league. When you start to come into the real championship stuff, there is a massive difference. And he's yet to really sparkle and show. Now, Dean Rock is probably saying, well, I feel very hard done by, because to be fair, he has done it.
I think Costello is, like, he's primed for a Footballer of the Year. This is a breakout year because he's had such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like, when you think back, so Costello was a superstar minor hurler and footballer and had a bigger reputation than any of that crowd coming through. Like, as big as Conor Callaghan's was at minor, as Conor Callaghan's was at under-21, like, has not yet fulfilled his potential, but has all that potential there.
Yeah.
And has added the physicality and the nastiness to the skill set now, and you're starting to see the responsibility come out. So he's my Footballer of the Year tip from a couple of months back.
And there is responsibility there. You can see him talking to the players. You can see him. I always thought he was a bit of a petulant character a number of years ago, and I think he's lost that. He's grown up. He's matured. This is a big game for him. You know, if he all of a sudden gets 1-4, 1-5, or 1-6, you're saying, right, this guy has really he's come of age now. So, you know, not to heap any pressure on him.
Yeah. Any of the other games of the weekend, the Irish News reckon that Down is a big opportunity for them against Mayo. I think Antrim have a good chance against Kildare at the weekend, to be honest, because it's small, tight ground. I mean, Newbridge is a small, tight ground, so like that shouldn't be an excuse. But it's just that like Kildare coming off the back of that shellacking, as opposed to a 6-point defeat. And so turning that around against a team who are bouncing into it, a home crowd.
It's always tricky, right? But Kildare are used to it. And I don't mean that that's over we, by the way. But you do kind of get used to that. You kind of go, okay, we're here again. You know, it's what do we need to do? We need to park that. We need to move on, and we need to get ready. I can't see it. I don't think Antrim will just have enough. Yes, they're bouncing, absolutely. It'll be a fair battle, absolutely. And you're right, it could be a potential banana skin. I think the Down Mayo one is really interesting. I think that is a seriously interesting bet. Now, it might be because everyone has got on it now, but Down have been improving extremely well. There seems to be a different atmosphere down there or up there. There just seems to be a different feel. You're not hearing the stories that you would have heard last year, the year before, that there was this going on, that going on. There just seems to be a bit more of a, you know, the doors have closed. We're keeping it in-house. There's a bit of a better atmosphere around the county. And they can always play football. They've always been an excellent football team. And you know with Mayo they're going to play football, right? So it's going to be probably a good footballing game. And it could be one of those that goes into extra time and it's just one of those
Not
games.
on TV, is it?
I don't think so.
No, that's a pity. Down are +6, by the way. Antrim are +7. Yeah.
I know what yours betting on this weekend then. That accumulator is starting to tot up nicely. Like it is one of those things that when it comes to Mayo over the last couple of years, the down away thing is just the perfect prototype of what Mayo have tended to struggle with. Like, is it time that Mayo finally look at one of these games and say, we need to start hammering these teams? Like, of course, the danger is when you start playing down to your opposition, Newbridge happens. You get knocked out of the championship. Yeah. Is it a situation where Mayo are like, nothing other than a 12-point win is actually going to be good enough for us? Because what is the point of actually going through these qualifiers, hitting banana skin after banana skin after banana skin? We need to start putting fear into our opposition. We need to get to a point where we are the second best team in the country.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's the next team. This current team is the last
Are they still
This is the old
survivors?
team. This is the old team, right? You've got to gut that team, start again, and go. Now we're the new
Mayo
team.
team.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. Like, I don't know, I haven't spoken to you guys about it, but you know, the Brolly article after the Roscommon game, remember?
I didn't read it.
Okay.
I missed
Well,
it.
on the Sunday, you know, he basically just said, and like, I have to say, it was a tip of a hat to it because.
Was it this is the most interesting team in the country? That one.
No, he basically just saying, you know,
he
just said it's the same again. You know, he pointed out, rightly or wrongly, the Andy Moran shot at the very, very end where he got blocked down, right? And I went back and I watched it. Andy gets a ball, he turns over his left shoulder, there's a man here outside for a pass, there's another man there, and he goes for an over his shoulder shot, it gets blocked down, goes for a scum man, they go up the field to get a score. And in that moment, it might have seemed very, very small when you're watching it, right? You might have been just, oh, great block. But actually, someone runs around his back, so he gets the ball here, and a man comes around the loop. All he should do is to slip it to him, and he would have got in. So he had two options, basically, right? He had three options, shoot or two passes, and he chose to shoot. Now, gets the score, brilliant, Andy, our saviour, you know, lauded again. But this goes back to, and I've been there, when you start to get to the end of your days, you think that everything you do has to be, you know, something that brilliant, right, for the team and for yourself, essentially, right? You know, you have to get the big block, you have to get the big catch. You forget about being a cog in the wheel, okay? And I think there's too much of that in the Mayo team at the moment. I think there are the embers are there of the team, but that, for me, you know, I was thinking during the year, yeah, he's bringing really experienced guys on at the end of a game. That's a good idea because they'll finish the game and they have the experience and all of that stuff. But unless those guys are, you know, not happy about doing that and they want to be back at the very start, I see too many of them. I see Boyle, I see Andy Moran, I see different fellas, I see Vaughan, I see all these guys who have been there so many times, they've gone to the well so many times, they have ultimately failed so many times, right? And he's going again and again and again and he's asking them to do these jobs, and I just don't think it is there. Yeah. I think they're very, very vulnerable at the weekend. I think your point is that I think they've come to a place where, you know, really if you sat them down and you said, would you, I think they'd say, no, we can't win it. We just haven't. We have been in a place over the last number of years that we have been the most prepared, the fittest, the strongest, everything, and we still didn't get there. So now, why would you think you can get there now? I really don't think. They're not anywhere. They're not in my top four in the country at the moment.
Where are they? They're fifth in you, are they? Fifth in your power rankings?
I think, yeah.
That's probably, I'd even say, you know, yeah. Like, I mean, and I think what drops them from 5 to say to 7 or 8 is not durability, it's here. And that in that moment, right now, there was plenty of other moments in the game. And I'm not saying there was loads of Mayo lads who died with their boots on that day, but that moment was kind of symptomatic of, you can imagine a training session or an atmosphere down in Castlebar, which is, we're still the men, right? We've brought this team to here, and you guys are just the whippersnappers. Now, you do the donkey work, but we'll put the finishing touches to it. And I have a feeling that now, I could be completely wrong, but you have those lads have to get their head, and they have to, you say, they'll be the next generation of that Meath team, and bring it on.
Yeah, it's a conversation we might have if and when this Mayo path comes to an end, but that idea of like the next generation, the reset button perhaps being pushed on this Mayo team, the sort of Paul Flynn-esque retirements that may need to happen.
Well, you can see why, if you're Mayo and you're that management team who's just come in, you're going to give these lads one last chance because they're so close. They're so close. But this might be the year that they realise. So when Pat Gilroy came in, he had the first year with all the Pillars team.
Yeah.
And then they all got burned out, and year 2 was the 2010 team that gets hammered by Meath, but then goes ultra defensive in the middle of the championship. Yeah. And 2011 they reach the semi-final. 2011 they win. Yeah.
A cathartic moment for him, you know, and a moment of a journey that he was on. And he had to break the cell,
the Pillar team,
right? Yeah, which was very cosy. And was probably, you know, holding an awful lot of the narrative at team meetings and different stuff. You had to break that, shove that out.
And so maybe Mayo need that too. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but there might be like that coterie of players who you thought were going to be really useful, but actually are progress stoppers for the next generation.
Maybe Newbridge was that moment.
It could have been, yeah.
Well, we know there's been loads of stories last couple of years. Remember, who Rob Henley, who's pressing him to play. There was all those rumours going around of who's actually managing the team, running the team, who's influencing here. And I have a feeling, because James has obviously been there before, that there's a coziness, which is grand. But then that, where I've been, Eoin has been my buddy and been one of my confidants on the team. As he starts to get older, that relationship starts to get grated, because now I'm saying, actually, you're not my man anymore. Ger is my man. Now, he might go.
Feels good, isn't it?
I don't think.
It's like being on Love Island.
Yeah. This has nothing to do with your cycling ability. But when that relationship breaks, then that has a very toxic atmosphere. Around the place.
Right, well, a lot will be revealed in down in Newry at 7 o'clock on Saturday evening. Anthony, good stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
All right, lads.
Now, we're going to get to boxing and Andy Lee next, but first, speaking off the ball last night from France at the World Cup, Pat Nevin described the unusual indifference there is to the Women's World Cup in the host nation.
I've been to 4 cities, I've moving around, I'm going to get to see most. On the ground, you don't see it. It's almost as if this competition isn't happening. There's no big banners, you go to any World Cup, be it Rio, they don't really need to actually go and sell it, but they do. And you go to South Africa, wherever, and there's banners everywhere, and it's a World Cup, and everyone's proud of it. You walk away in Paris in particular, it might not be on. Fair enough, they had Roland Garros, they had the big tennis on at the same time. But what they are arguing is they do their advertising on TV. So forget about your banners. That's where you actually make the money. That's where you actually go and provide a little bit of a push, and that's where you get people interested on TV. Problem is, the vast majority of games that we're beginning to see now, it's not actually French people that are there. It's actually, if you go to a US game, the place is absolutely mobbed with US fans. They're absolutely amazing. There's so many of them turn up. But interest in this competition out with the actual the French people themselves. It's not harmed yet, but I say yet, it might still. Remember, we've not got to the business end of the competition yet. I'm disappointed with one thing, and I think they've blown it completely. They're talking about the numbers they're getting. It's behind a paywall. The only games that are on terrestrial television are actually the French national team games themselves. That's why they're getting 11 millions, etc. But all the other games, I'm here to go and cover it. Now, it's like you can't go to every game, so you turn on the telly and you look for it. You can't get it. And if I'm in the media and I'm interested and I'm keen and I'm trying to get to watch it and I can't get to watch it, well, what's it like for people who are kind of vaguely interested? It's really poor showing. Right. Obviously, it was a financial deal that they did that there, but that's had a negative effect, and it should have had a much more positive effect. Maybe it's something I'm just used to. Everywhere I've ever went to watch a World Cup, we do the World Cup, we come home for a game and watch the other games that are on. But it's not been happening here.
That's Pat Nevin in France at the Women's World Cup. Andy Lee is with us. Andy, how are you?
Good morning, Jay.
So we want to talk about the heavyweights. Tyson Fury has demonstrated that if there is one way to win American hearts, it's to knock somebody out early and then sing while dressed as Paul Creed. It's like there's a template there.
He's getting better at singing. He's getting better. I remember he did the same song after he fought Vladimir. That one was a bit cringy, but this one was a lot better. His rendition. Don't know, did you see it, Eoin?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Like, I'm not sure what base we're actually judging him off, but he's certainly putting together a try. Like, I wonder if that's something he practices?
Again, start low, make expectations be pretty low, and then if you get better after that, it's like, actually, you've been working on this.
Yeah, he's definitely improved. Yeah, he did it was mission accomplished by all means, because there was no doubt he was going to beat Tom Swartz, but how he could beat him, and the fact that he had this, this outrageous entrance and put on the show and sang the song, as you just mentioned. And I think all the week of the fight, he was doing a lot of media and publicity, and he really sold himself over there.
Yeah, because you have to, right? And that's the opportunity right now, especially after what had happened when Joshua went over and completely flunked.
As well as Celestine, the most important part of that would be getting a stoppage or a knockout, which he did. Because in America, they don't want to see 12 rounds of boxing. After 4 or 5 rounds, if you're a heavyweight, they'll start booing if it's anyway tentative. So they want to see action, and no, he did his job. He did his job perfectly.
Because there's been times in the past where he's kind of boxed down to the level of the person he's fighting. And almost every boxer in history has done at various stages, and he hasn't been able to get fighters out who are inferior fighters. There's been some kind of boring fights where he's just jabbed his way around. Obviously, it was a decision made to go and look, let's just do this.
I think so. I think he had to. I think he probably knew that there was some pressure on him to get him out of there and kind of cement himself as the number one heavyweight. Over his last few fights, the two previous fights, 2 fights prior to Wilder, I think he was definitely using it as practice to get rounds in, and so he went the distance with those guys where he probably could have stopped them, but no, this was a very more intent Tyson, and went about his job very seriously. Okay,
we'll talk a bit more about what's changed for him on and off, or in and out of the ring rather, but I'm delighted to say we're about to be joined by one of the most familiar voices in the boxing world. Let's listen to Mike Costello here, called the final passage of the remarkable third round in Anthony Joshua's bout with Andy Ruiz Jr. for BBC Radio 5 Live. Have a listen.
25 seconds to go in round 3. Joshua close to his own corner, leans in with a jab to the body now. Ruiz, is he also getting tired after the exertions of this round? A sensational round of heavyweight boxing. Ruiz goes forward again and opens up, and he catches Joshua with a right hand. Joshua holds on. This could be close to the finish. Joshua goes down again for the second time in the round. At the end of the third round, will he rise to his feet? He's on unsteady legs again. He rolls back. Will the referee allow him to continue? As Jack Reese did with Tyson Fury, the referee is allowing Joshua back. Anthony Joshua saved by the bell. What a round! He is wobbling back to his corner. One of the great rounds in the history of heavyweight boxing. One of the great rounds we've seen here in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, good stuff, Mike. How are you? Good morning to you.
Good morning, fellas.
Hair in the back of your neck there. Have you listened back to that?
I've seen it back on the video that our producer recorded at ringside, so I try not to, because I'll only pick holes in it. So
no, you can't pick any holes in that.
That was a special night, and one that was unexpected. You know, we all thought the big story in certainly in British sport that day would be the Champions League final, and a lot of the British fans that were over there were parked up somewhere in bars around New York in the afternoon, thinking that would be the main event, and that Joshua would just go through the motions during the evening against Andy Ruiz. But heavyweight boxing, you just never know. And listening to you both talking there, you know, we've now got 2 fights to look forward to: the rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and the rematch between Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. I can't think of a time in recent years when the heavyweight division has had 2 such fights for everybody to look forward to. I mean, which one, you're offered a ticket, which one of those would you go to? I mean, it's a really difficult one. Great time to be around.
Well, it's mad, because here's the point, and we were talking about this. It was like these 3 fights that the 3 main contenders had all felt like they were a little bit kind of like nothing fights, right? It was like, oh, this is just a waste of everybody's time. They should all be fighting each other. And then actually, it's worked out quite well for everybody that Fury is now established in America, that Joshua needs this comeback narrative, and we have a knockout artist in Deontay Wilder.
And I guess with Joshua losing, it kind of takes the shine off him for a little bit, so he has to go and have that rematch for himself and for his own image. But the other 2 are still, they kind of add into the draw, you know, with Wilder just destroying Brazil in a round, and then Tyson Fury getting Tom Swartz. Not that he was never going to get Tom Swartz out of there, but that he built his persona there and showed his character and his personality, and I guess it's just making the rematch all that much bigger.
And it's worth remembering, Andy, that, you know, the odds stacked against Tom Schwartz were very similar to those stacked against Andy Ruiz. So, you know, we go there thinking, oh, he's going to blow Tom Schwartz away, but you know, we felt the same about Joshua and Andy Ruiz. And I think the key for Tyson Fury there was activity, getting his 4th fight in a year, and that kept him in the gym. I think that's the key to what we're seeing with Tyson Fury.
And I think it's also with Tyson, it's down to his mental stability. If he's in a good place mentally and emotionally, then he'll have a good performance. I think when he's had those crazy up and down fights, he's been like that in his own life outside of the ring. And I think, you know, those 2 things go in hand with him, especially. Go in hand with most fighters, but with him more so, because he he kind of wears his heart on his sleeve and lives that kind of way, that it's all out there.
Yeah, and we went to the house that he was staying at earlier in the week, and we did a half-hour interview with him, and some of it was worthy of a stand-up routine. He was in a really cracking mood, and that showed, as you say, Andy, in the ring. And I remember talking to Ricky Hatton up in his gym in Manchester, and talking about how when even just watching Tyson Fury in his early stages of a workout, he'll just jump between the ropes, and just the way he's so loose and so fluid and so languid as he moves around the ring. He's just got this wonderful natural ability, and he's got this. Ben Davison, his trainer, was saying to me, he's got these great eyes where he's always looking at the opponent. And I know that sounds like a really obvious statement, but we watched back part of Joshua's fight against Ruiz, and he said, look here, Joshua's not even looking at that punch coming at him, he's looking away. And many a fighter does that, but Fury keeps his eye, that beady eye on the opponent the whole time, and reads them so well.
What does that do to a fighter, Andy, that idea that you can actually gauge what's coming towards you? Is it kind of an awareness that you can't teach, or is there a coaching difference here between the two fighters?
Between the two of them, it would be, I think, the advantage Tyson has, and anybody who starts boxing early, is that you build up instincts, that will kick in when you're hurt, or that will get you through a round when you're hurt. And I think Andy Ruiz has those instincts because he has a long amateur career. Whereas Joshua started boxing at 20, doesn't have those instincts, and he didn't know how to react once he was hurt, and he didn't even know what he got hit with in the corner. He was asking, and that's all from keeping an eye on what's coming at you. I don't know if you would agree with that, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. That fighting instinct is absolutely clear, and I think it's that would be an issue for Deontay Wilder down the line as well, because he came late to the sport, and so and also they've done a lot of, and again this might sound strange, but they've done a lot of their boxing at a very high level, so they haven't gone through those grades and learned all of those different instincts along the way, and fought all of those different types of styles that may come up against in the professional ranks.
Mike, just to go back to your commentary, we're all huge fans of it here. There was a line after the Joshua Ruiz fight, and I just wanted to, I've thought about it a lot, and it was a perfect summation of it. And it was in the immediate aftermath of it, just after the round ended and the decision was called. You said that Andy Ruiz has thrown a hand grenade into the heavyweight landscape, and it was the perfect line. And I just wondered, had you thought about that before, or was that in the moment? Because a lot of what you do is in the moment, and me as your co-commentator, I'm sitting there watching the fight, but also I know what's going on beside me in terms of the commentary in the moment and how you're able to call a fight. Yeah,
I mean that was in the moment. I was talking to somebody just last week in Las Vegas about that. They asked me the same question, and as that was happening at the end, the word that was coming to my head at the time was bomb. Something about throwing a bomb, or he's exploded a bomb, and you're thinking about this in just split seconds. I suppose not unlike you, just how on earth did you show that punch against Korobov or whatever, but I then, through this thought process, got worried about what can I use the word bomb on a BBC broadcast. So all of this is going through my, so how am I going to, he has actually blown up the whole heavyweight division, how am I going to say this? And in the end, that's the phrase that came out, and I must admit, even as I said it, I thought, oh my God, how's this going to go down? Is it too incendiary kind of thing? And so you just you go with the moment, and you trust your experience and your judgment at the time, and that's what I did. Was that was at the end of the third round, you said?
No, I think it was the end of the sixth, when it was
the end of the fight.
Just as you were wrapping it up, and you spoke about Andrew Ruiz being bullied in school, and then you just came up with that line.
Right,
it was perfect.
Steve Bunce had a good line as well about certain fights in history when the dust never really settles. This feels a little bit like one of those fights where the perfect prototype heavyweight in Anthony Joshua, who is supposed to reign supreme for decades, gets completely blown off course in 12 minutes.
And the thing was that there has been kind of upsets like this as well in the past, when you look at Lennox Lewis's career and maybe Klitschko's career, but they were never systematic breakdowns, or there was never this kind of, just Joshua broke down. once he was hurt, he never recovered, and there was a kind of an inevitability then about it, as Andy Ruiz went about breaking him down physically and mentally. And like where those other ones who I was talking about, the upsets, they were one punches. You look at Hasim Rahman against Nanek, or Klitschko, where he was kind of similar with Corey Sanders, and you see like it was a different feeling, wasn't it? It wasn't like a shock that can happen in heavyweight boxing. This was a different feeling.
It was, and I think that more closely aligned to Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. That wasn't as systematic, but it was a beating over a number of rounds. And I think what that did, and it's happened to Anthony Joshua, is it diluted the aura of Mike Tyson. I remember Buster Douglas afterwards saying everybody who'd fought Mike Tyson before me had done so with one leg in the ring and one leg outside the ring. And that changed after Buster Douglas had beaten Mike Tyson. I know he came back and won the world title again, but he never had that same invincible monster type aura. And I think that's going to be a big issue for Anthony Joshua now as he moves on from here. I also remember a great line from George Foreman after he lost to Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, and he said he didn't just lose the world title, he lost something of himself as a man. And that world title was so much of who Anthony Joshua is that I think this is absolutely fascinating now, this next stage of his career, because I do actually think that Anthony Joshua can beat Andy Ruiz, but only the best of Anthony Joshua can beat Andy Ruiz. I think if he can go back and reproduce the performance he produced against Alexander Povetkin in his previous fight, we might see a different kind of contest. But it is fascinating because we don't know how shredded his mind is after that.
That's what I was going to ask you, Mike. Do you feel he's actually, you'd know him better, you would have met him and interviewed him a lot more than he was. Do you feel he's actually feeling the loss? Because, there's been this, he's put out a video of himself where he's taken it quite well. He seems quite philosophical about the whole thing. And he's certainly insulated from, I guess, the general public. But so do you feel like, the magnitude of the loss, as it would most fighters, well, I guess, I'll say this, I'll ask you that question, but as another point, where most fighters, they lose a fight, it means financial ruin for at some point. You're fighting for your livelihood. Your next fight is, you're getting paid a lot less, and it could be 6 or 7 months down the line. So maybe he doesn't have that kind of fear, but for his own personal, I don't know, his own persona, his own ego, do you feel like he's felt a loss?
I think that's a really difficult question to answer. What you've seen on that video, I think that is to do and tailored towards all the brands that he's associated with. And somebody said to me in the aftermath of the loss, this is a man who can't leave his house, his hotel room, his apartment, wherever he happens to be, without checking what kind of watch he's wearing, what kind of baseball cap he's got on, what kind of trainers he's got on, what kind of jeans, what kind of t-shirt. He's got so many brands attached to him. He's got to check that he's got every one of those somewhere on his attire. And I think that plays into what we see as the public persona. How much this is hurting deep down, I think, only those and the closest to him will know. But also, how much now does he really want to, follow his own phrase of stay hungry? How much does he want to, as he's told us in interviews so often down the years, really make a deep and lasting impact in the heavyweight division? In my time as BBC correspondent in athletics and in boxing, I've followed, luckily, the careers of Floyd Mayweather and Usain Bolt, and these are two geniuses of their different sports, and each time they go to the big event, they find the motivation, they find the inspiration, they find the reason to keep going, to keep getting back to the gym. For Usain Bolt to keep vomiting on the track after training sessions. Now, does Anthony Joshua want it as much as those two? We're about to find out.
Mm-hmm. Mike, does that, I wonder, come back to Andy's earlier point about coming to the sport quite late? I wonder that there isn't that sort of inherent view of boxing as the most important fibre of his life. He's come to it, and it probably is still the most important thing in his life, but perhaps that desire, that innate desire, isn't there to the level that some other boxers have it. Is that too harsh a take?
No, I don't think it is at all. And money is a huge factor here as well. That when a man is earning, $20 million, even £20 million sterling for every single fight, for every single huge occasion, in the end, you have to find motivation and inspiration from somewhere else. And I think, when we look at these reasons, there have been so many rumours about why and how he lost. Did he get knocked out in sparring? Did he have a panic attack in the dressing room? For me, I've been able to nail none of those down, but I just think it was complacency, and I think also he was beaten by speed on the night and by somebody who was actually cleverer than him.
Which is the worrying part, right? Because the comparisons with the Buster Douglas fight, like Mike Tyson's personal life was in rack and ruin at that point, and he had gone completely off the rails. But Joshua, none of that stuff seems to come out. Like, he's clean cut, he's clean living. It's the bit where you get dismantled by somebody in a massive fight like that, when you're on the verge of these blockbuster fights, which will define the heavyweights division for maybe this might be the best. If those three could arrive and fight a trilogy against each other, then that would be as good as anything we've seen in heavyweight boxing since Tyson's heyday, right? But I
100% agree with Mike. It was complacency. That was the word he used, and it was the word that's just struck the nail on the head, because when you're not expecting a tough fight like that, especially when you've hurt the guy and dropped him, and just you think all I've got to do now is finish him, and then he comes back and takes your best punch in the following round and is still putting it on you and drops you, that will break anybody, especially if you don't have experience in that, So, if you compare to Joshua's previous fight with Povetkin would probably beat Ruiz, You look at Povetkin was probably a harder fight, and he found a way to win that, and I think he was mentally prepared for that kind of a fight, but he wasn't this time around.
Yeah, I agree. And if there are reasons in the background, I think that will actually help him if something did happen in sparring or whatever. But it is fascinating. We're talking about, and Andy, you mentioned first of all the fighting instinct of Tyson Fury. He's been in gyms since he could probably breathe. And you see how he reacted, in particular in the last round against Deontay Wilder. He went for a walk for a while, but then put it on Wilder again. And that's that fighting instinct. First of all, let's just regroup, let's just recompose. And then he went after him. Well, there was none of that with Joshua. Joshua rushed in after having scored a knockdown himself, as if he was the one who was responding from a knockdown. So, it was that basic instinct that was missing for Joshua. But, as you say, these are fights, and an interest in the heavyweight division that hasn't been around since Mike Tyson. I mean, you go back just over 2 years now to April 2017. You had Klitschko against Joshua. Then last year you had Wilder against Fury, and now we've had Ruiz against Joshua. Those three fights in 2 years, you could slot those into any era apart from the great era of Ali, Foreman, Norton and Frazier in the 70s. Any era of heavyweight history, you could slot that 2 year period of those three fights, and there may be more to come. I'm pretty sure there will be more to come.
The fact that Klitschko and Joshua was the start of that, and we saw in that fight Joshua come back from being hurt, that was what kind of, so he has it in it.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing in this. It's not new, it's something that he was unexpected new.
Has it been diluted by experience and by money? Would the Joshua who succumbed to Ruiz have got up against Vladimir Klitschko? I think 2 years on, an awful lot has changed in his life, and he now has to find, what Floyd Mayweather, what Usain Bolt, going all the way back to Ali and any other, great name of sport that kept on doing it. He's got to find that reason to go again, to get to the gym and to find, and to look at how it all came about. He does an awful lot of sparring with amateurs. I was talking to David Hay at the airport in Vegas the other day about how sometimes you've got to do some really ugly sparring. You've got to do some really hard sparring with horrible, nasty people, not people that look up to you and dote on you like the amateurs do. Yes, he gets all of that speed and and all of that different type of experience, but sometimes you just got to get ugly and dirty.
I'm just nodding in agreement with everything he says here. It's 100%, yeah.
Mike, I'd be interested to get your take on who is the most important heavyweight in the United States right now.
I think it's Tyson Fury, without any question. Looking at how everybody responded to him at the weekend, and I know this is like a cheesy old line and a bit of a chestnut, but when we got in the taxi on Sunday morning to go to the airport, the first thing the driver said was, "Did you see that Tyson Fury fight last night?" Now, he went on to dismiss it as a joke, but he was talking about it, and that wouldn't have happened with a Deontay Wilder fight. Am I saying this fight brought Vegas to a standstill? Not at all. But with Tyson Fury, and this is what they billed it as, and they had to because of the level of opponent. But what you're getting is this show, the ring walk, all the crazy interviews in the build-up, and then the singing afterwards. So that's drawing in a wider audience, a wider sports audience that might not necessarily stop by boxing. And so I think he could be a really important figure for the entire sport, not just in the States.
It's interesting. Like, I've been weighing that up, as in who's better for who? Is ESPN better for Tyson Fury, or is Tyson Fury better for ESPN?
Yeah, and I think it's, you could argue either way. There's no doubt about it. They did a terrific job in pushing him around at the week. I'd be a little bit concerned, I have to say, now in hindsight, if he had to do that much work ahead of a Deontay Wilder fight. By that I mean that much promotional work. He was everywhere last week. Every camera that was pointed in his face, every microphone that came anywhere near him, he said something too. I'd be a little bit concerned if I was around him as a camp member about just managing that workload of media duties in the build-up, which is all part and parcel of it. I realise that, but you can do that against Tom Schwartz, and it comes easily to him. But everybody needs a rest at some stage. They need to just, you need a head shower, as you guys would say.
You've been in camp with Andy with Tyson at various stages. Does he have the right voices around him to be able to say, look, next time around, this is what we're going to manage and this is how we're going to do it?
I don't like. It's been a lot of change in his team since I was around him, but I would say that in Ben Davidson, although he's young, he's quite smart. Would you agree, Mike? He's quite smart in that sense, and even Tyson himself, he kind of, I don't think he'd be shy in saying, look, that's enough, or that's too much, or even just blowing off an interview if he felt it was going to take away from his performance.
Absolutely, and Ben's a big factor. Ben is a no man. In this sport, it's full of yes men, and Ben is a no man, and he really needs that around him.
Mike, there's some talk of Jarrell Miller or Pulev. How do you see those fights, or who do you think is more likely to fight Tyson?
Simply in terms of the promotion, I like the idea of Pulev. I think if he's going to face Jarrell Miller, I think in terms of promotion, in terms of the whole aura around Tyson Fury, it's a real issue, because even though it's a very, very different situation, we have to remember that he has a 2-year ban next to his name. It's a messy situation with UCAD, the anti-doping authority here in the UK, but he has got this blemish on his record. It's nothing like the severity of what Jarrell Miller did, and which forced him out of the fight against Anthony Joshua. But I just don't understand why they would give everybody in the media and fans alike the reason to rake over the past that Tyson Fury has done so much to get rid of. Because in going back to that, we go back to a dark place in his life, and I don't see why there's a need to do that. He's spoken, whenever you try and delve into that past, he says, no, this is the new Tyson Fury. Let's talk about what's happening right now. I just think promotionally, I think emotionally for Tyson Fury, that's a bad move. The problem is, in the States, their attitude to drug taking is very different to ours, and already they're talking about Jarrell Miller, who's absolute filth in terms of what he's done, and he's going to be back within 6 months of being found out. It's just absolutely staggering. But I think for the well-being of Tyson Fury, and we spoke about all of those media duties. Well, a lot of those media duties are going to involve answering questions about his own drugs past, and I think it's completely unnecessary at this stage in his career, when he can take on somebody who's equally valid in terms of an opponent and a stepping stone, if that's what you want to call it, between here and the rematch against Deontay Wilder.
So the rematch against Wilder is October, November next year? Is that the plan?
No. After the fight of the weekend, Bob Arum was saying it will be in the first quarter of 2020. They've just got to. What they want to avoid is anything close to the Super Bowl and anything close to a college basketball weekend called March Madness. Now, there are only 2 separate weekends, but Bob Arum was saying that they want a huge build-up, a run into the fight. So they're going to have to manage it really carefully, because they're saying that this is an event, they hope, in the way that they promote it, that will bring American sport to a standstill. So they've got really big ideas about this fight.
A premiere at halftime in the Super Bowl wouldn't be a bad way to kickstart any bit of promotion.
Right.
Kick it off at the start of April, right after the NCAA finals. Perfect time for a fight.
Would be a huge signal as to how big it is.
And so he's got to fight once in between. Is that what everybody thinks?
They're both going to fight once. It seems that
Wilder
will have a rematch with Ortiz, which is a dangerous fight in itself, and then Tyson would fight Pulev which is still a slightly dangerous fight. You know, a lot more than the Tom Swartz fight.
Yeah,
it's a lot more competitive.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Great to have you with us, Mike, this morning. Thanks a million for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Mike.
Great to talk to you, fellas. Yeah, all the best.
That's Mike Costello there, the voice of boxing on 5 Live, and it seems like a great guy to work with.
Yeah, we could just do an interview about him, and he's like, and forget boxing outside in general, just with him and his life within sport, in boxing and now athletics as a commentator. It's such an interesting guy. Yeah.
Is Tyson getting better as a boxer? Like, is this the peak of him now?
Yeah, probably his peak at the moment. Getting better. I still think there's room to improve with him, because what he does is not. It's not by the book, you know. It's not painting by the numbers. It's very unorthodox what he does, and it's very fluid, and he's kind of improvising as he goes. So he could always tighten things up a bit, but yeah, he's.
Is the risk if he tightens things up that you take away
some of that? Yeah. So you
put him in a system, and suddenly the stuff he's really good at falls apart.
But he's always had this ability, and even when I was listening back to Mike Costello and Steve Bunce's review of the Tom Swartz fight, that they were talking about one move that he did that many featherweights would be proud of, you know. And he's always had this ability as such a big man, 6'8", 18 stone, that he could move and box and be as coordinated as middleweights, you know, as smaller fighters. With most tall big men, they don't have that coordination, so they have to box in that kind of rigid way, like Joshua, like Klitschko, where they're not kind of expanding themselves or being three-dimensional with their movements, because it's forward, backwards, left, right, 1, 2. You know, it's very predictable, where he is the complete opposite.
And one other thing is, like when we talk about Anthony Joshua there and the complacency that sets in, it's very easy for us to sit here and say, how can you get complacent when that much is on the line? But it's obviously something that's highly possible for a professional boxer to allow happen. Is that anything that ever happened to you? Did you ever get a sense that I'm a bit worn out from this thing?
No, I with the complacency, you just underestimate somebody, certainly. Because you start to believe your own hype. I did the same thing. I fought Brian Vieira for the first time. It was my first fight on ESPN. I thought I was just going to turn up and wipe him away. He was just the opponent to be brought in. And the exact same thing. I dropped him hard early in the fight. Thought, okay, I'm just going to cruise to win now. And went all out to take him out. But he weathered the storm, and he survived it. And I was burned out. I punched myself out, and he came back and he broke me and we were still fighting by the end, but I was stopped in the fight. And when you're not expecting a kind of a hard fight, and you could see his demeanour throughout the fight week, Joshua, that he was so, he actually gave Anthony Ruiz a hold of his belts at the face-to-face. He was like, hey, hold these, you know, and like there was no edge. Yeah. And he paid the price.
Which is a really not good way to introduce yourself to America. Like, I'm not taking this seriously at all.
It couldn't have gone any worse. And then the following week, Tyson Fury comes out and does that, like, you know, and against not an opponent, but the performance, the character and all that stuff. And it just really hammers home the fact that Tyson Fury is the heavyweight now in America.
Yeah, for sure. Andy, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks.
Now, Tom's going to talk to us about Royal Ascot in a minute. First, we're talking about that odd guy, Kawhi Leonard, and where the Toronto Raptors star will be playing next season. Here's Ryan Jones giving us the lowdown on Off the Ball last night. Have a look.
Is the home of Irish sport, not just for Irish athletes, but for you and the community. So if you or your kids want to get fit or get into sport, then check us out. Learn to swim, dive, or even tumble in gymnastics. Join our Tone Zone gym with our 50-metre pool, or try our innovative pay-as-you-go fitness classes. Run our indoor track, book a soccer, basketball, or badminton court. There are so many ways to get active. Find out more at nationalsportscampus.ie.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Yeah, he's an odd guy, and I think part of it is the laugh itself sounds ridiculous. But beyond that, he doesn't fit the superstar mold at all as far as his personality. He's very private. He's not doing a lot in the way of endorsements. He doesn't kind of have that public presence and that kind of natural charisma that you see. You know, we've seen over the years from Kobe, LeBron. Steph Curry, a lot, obviously going back to Jordan. So he doesn't really fit the mold that way. I think famously he was driving like a beat-up 20-year-old car even after he won the Finals MVP a few years ago with San Antonio. So he's just a bit of an odd duck, a bit of an outlier. And then you throw this, and one of the jokes with him is that he never smiles, or very, very rarely smiled. So when he not only smiled but laughed, and then that was the laugh, there was a sense of you've got to be kidding me.
Okay.
So yeah, he's a lot of unintentional comedy with Kawhi Leonard.
Where's he off to, and how's he going to do?
Well, so that's the thing. He's a free agent, and there is a sense that he's from the Southern California near Los Angeles. The Lakers and the Clippers both theoretically have enough money to lure him away and back to his sort of home turf. The Lakers now having just finalized, or not finalized, but basically finalized a deal for Anthony Davis to join LeBron. If they could get Kawhi Leonard as well, that team would immediately be the heavy favorites to win next year. The Clippers have a really good supporting cast that they could put around him. Or he's on a great team in Toronto that just won a championship. So there's a sense, why wouldn't you stay? The city loves you. The team's good. You should be able to compete for a while. So I don't think anyone knows what's going on with him, again, because he's such a private guy. There's not a lot of a sense of people being plugged into sort of how he thinks. So it's one of there's a number of sort of great mysteries this summer, and what he's going to do is chief among them.
Ryan Jones at the Farmer Jones on Twitter there, giving us his thoughts on Kawhi Leonard on last night's Off the Ball. Tom Malone is here after the opening day of Royal Ascot. How were your tips yesterday, Tom?
Not great. It's a character building. Horse racing is character building. They say you did tame lions, but yeah, look, back in a few leads at Royal Ascot's not the worst thing in the world.
Okay. They unveiled another statue of Lester Piggott yesterday. I don't know what kind of, is he in good health? He showed up anyway?
He showed up. He's seen plenty of public. He was renowned for being very media shy back in the day, but he go to an opening of an envelope these days, we've seen. But anyway, they're unveiling statues and telling him how great he is.
I'd show for the unveiling of my own statue.
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few statues of him going around at the moment.
There's 9 apparently in honour of his 9 Derby wins. They've got 9 different statues of him that they're just like.
It was pretty impressive. And look, I always loved the Lester Piggott story, though. He just had to come back after he got done for the tax evasion, aged 53. And I was like, well, this is all I know I can do. So
he was still pretty good at that stage, though.
He's still pretty good, yeah. He came back, won a couple of derbies, Right,
okay, yeah.
But no, yesterday was all about one man, really. It was the Aidan O'Brien show. 2 winners for him. I think his 9th winner, the Coventry with Arizona, who stepped up from a maiden into that, which is a very impressive performance by No Nay Never. Looks like he'd go on to be a Guineas horse next year. And a piece of absolute genius in the training of Circus Maximus. It's a pretty unorthodox route. So Jim Bulger did it with Dawn Approach a couple of years ago. But to go up to the Derby trip of 1.5 miles with Circus Maximus, and then only a couple of weeks later come back down to 1 mile to run against proven Guineas horses in the St James's Palace Stakes.
So explain why that's different.
Just the pace of the race is just so different. I mean, the mile trip versus 1.5 mile Derby trip, it's all about stamina, whereas like something like a Guineas, it just happens so quickly to just jump out, bowl along.
Guineas over a mile.
He shouldn't really have the pace to compete adequately in both.
And how did he get on in the Derby trial?
Well, in the Derby, Circus Maximus was ridden by Frankie Dettori, and in the very early stages he stumbled coming out of the stalls, so actually nearly dropped Frankie inside the first furlong, and then he kind of made eye-catching enough progress, came home around 7th, I think, but he was eye-catching enough. He just couldn't possibly get involved after that. But owners said it was Aidan's decision. Aidan said, no, the lads. I love the way they call them the lads of Coolmore, as if, some of the richest people on the planet are just like the lads. John Magner, Michael Tabor, Derek Smith, when they're compiling the running plans for these potential superstar signings.
So why would that have happened? Why would they have thought he was a Derby horse and then realised after that actually, or was the plan always for... Was the Derby run designed to get him fit for this race?
No, but Aidan O'Brien has such a quality of animal in his possession that it is always worth having a go at the Derby. This horse is so regally bred. He's by Galileo, who is the Derby king as regards if you want to breed a Derby horse. He's out of a mare called Duntle, who's a dual Royal Ascot winner and effectively a Group 1 winner, although she was actually disqualified, but she was first past the post in the matron. Circus Maximus is bred regally. If he was in any other yard, he would be an absolute superstar. But because Aidan O'Brien has such a volume of riches of horses, middle distance horses essentially, he throws 7 runners at the Derby and then he works out from there. But again, with 3-year-olds in their development, and this horse is 3, the timing of the Derby, it's actually an incredible ask of the horse to go and win at a track like Epsom, which is an undulating, turning track with an horrific camber on it, that it's just, as they'd say, it's the ultimate test of the thoroughbred. It's got uphill, downhill. It's such a difficult test. So that's why they always go for the Derby. And these horses are all entered in the Derby as basically yearlings as well. So that's a potential flag. And then if that doesn't work out, then they just work other plans from there. But to go from 1.5 miles back to a mile in consecutive Group 1s, having run okay, is quite rare. Although, like I said, Dun Approach did attempt it. He did it successfully, but that's because he just ran so badly in the Derby.
Right. It's such a different race, though, right? And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
There's that extra half mile means that you completely change
absolutely
your pacing
massive.
and the ask of the horse. And
yeah, and there was an incredible tactical element to the race yesterday. So Aidan O'Brien would regularly run multiple entries in the race. So even though they had Too Darn Hot, who was champion 2-year-old last year, Phoenix of Spain, who was a very impressive winner of the Irish Guinea, so the proper milers. But Aidan O'Brien had two basically horses in it at 66-1. So the assumption from other jockeys, and they get sucked into this trap so often, is that the two other ones are there as pacemakers, which is technically not allowed, but that's the assumption that they're just going to go and put the pace to the race. And so as the horses jump off, you get this thing where the jockeys look round looking for the two Ballydoyle so-called pacemakers, and the two Ballydoyle pacemakers just dropped out the back, and Ryan Moore shot straight to the front and controlled the entire pace of the race, and it was just a masterful piece of jockeyship. And then he just made every yard. He controlled the pace of the race, and then Frankie Dettori came to him about a furlong and a half out. Ryan knew he had more stamina in the locker, and he just eked him forward, and it was, you know, it was just a brilliant, brilliant piece of race riding. And it just goes to show the value of having top-class jockeys on board in the biggest races on the biggest stages. Because there's a few other instances over the course of the day that I don't really go into because it's too technical, but like instance where you're like, if Ryan Moore, Frankie Dettori had been on board there, that would have been different.
Go on, go into it. We can take
well, in the Coventry Stakes, for example, there's a horse called Threat, who was ridden by a young English rider, and he was the second favourite in the race, but as it came to sort of he got a dream run basically up to about the 2 furlong point, and then he had two options to make. So if he went to his right, basically the two market principals were fighting it at that side. If he went to his left, two lesser market rivals, but the easier option was to come to his left. The pace died immediately when he went that way, whereas if he'd lugged with Oisin Murphy to his right, he was only beaten fractions in the end. Not that I'm saying he wouldn't have been beaten by Arizona ultimately, but it was just the wrong decision. But it's just those split section decisions where the Frankie Dettoris, Johnny Murtaghs and Ryan Moores of this world
if you're going to draft off the good guys.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about booking jockeys, they all cost the same. So it's not like there's a premium to be paid for Paul Nolan used to always say that it's like you can have all the apprentices you want, but you can't really look an owner in the eye and say to him, "I'm leaving Ruby Walsh in the locker room." You can't do that.
Yeah, it's fair
and
enough.
Actually, on jockey as well, Johnny Murtagh on ITV or TV3 or Virgin Media Racing yesterday, his insight into how the jockeys are riding the races was brilliant yesterday.
He is a media superstar now, it turns out.
Yeah. No.
Straight off the horse, straight into training, straight into media. It's
you can do it. You can do it.
Nothing he can't do. What are we looking at today?
By the way, friend of the show, Willie McCreary, has a great chance today in the opening race of the day with Queen Mary Ickworth, number 13. The card ran about 9-1 as well. She's a dual winner. She's by Shamardal in the Godolphin Blue. Shamardal Blue Point, who won yesterday in the same colours, also by Shamardal. So watch out for her. But she's a really good price. She's 2 out of 2 so far.
What's the name?
Ickworth in the first race of the day, the Queen Mary. So, yep, like I say, friend of the show, Willie McCreary. Big race of the day is the Prince of Wales. Magical for Aidan O'Brien tops the market there. Sea of Class is the intriguing runner. She won the Irish Oaks last year, was second to Enable in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. It's her first run of the season, so that's a slight negative, whereas Magical has a much bigger fitness edge. Also, Sea of Class has never really proven herself to handle soft going, but that's just because in a weird quirk of fate, she just hasn't happened to have encountered soft going, because most of the racing was done last year when we had a dry summer. Yeah. So there wasn't much, there wasn't much soft ground on offer. But yeah, Magical has a right favourite chance. Aidan O'Brien's a wonderful record in the Queen's Vase as well at 3:05. He's won the race 6 times. He's got Norway, who finished 8th in the Derby that day. So that's a real proven ledger trial. It's actually changed the distance of that race recently to make sure it's a proper ledger trial. So Norway, expect him to do well in that and then go win the St. Ledger.
And do me a favour, Tom, just tell me the name of that race again.
Queen's Vase.
How do you say it?
Vase.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Screw anybody who says vase.
I am really paranoid about saying that word as well. I'm really paranoid.
Anybody who says vase needs to hand in their passport immediately.
Vase, vase or vase?
Vase.
You say vase.
Vase, yeah.
I'm not even saying it either.
He just said Queen's Vase.
You can hand in your passport as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else we're looking for today? What's the
race of the day is the Prince of Wales. It's an absolutely brilliant race. Look, Magical could do the business, but I'd love to see Siad Plastio. I think she can go and cement her arc claims today, and she can lay down a marker for Enable.
Good stuff, Tom. Thanks very much for that, and for the lesson in pronunciation too. Here's another look at our chat with Dahi Handi, the Sligo hurling manager, describing the everyday difficulties that weaker hurling counties must contend with.
Are the GAA, are they doing enough to help the weaker counties in hurling to develop them on, like we're seeing Paul Cody come out there during the week as to the GAA, what they need to do to help the weaker counties up in terms of funding, in terms of coaches. I know you have Derek Cox there doing great work around the county, but is there more people needed to help Sligo hurling reach the next level?
Well, Darragh's the GPO at the minute for hurling, but he's also covering Leitrim. So we have 6-7 hurling clubs in Sligo at the minute playing at senior level. We've, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, now 10 underage clubs, and then you have probably 2 to 4 senior clubs in Leitrim in any given year, and they're looking to build on it too. So you compare that to Carlow, where they've got 4 senior hurling clubs at the minute, and they definitely have more than one GPO. I think there might be one GPO per club. Yeah, there's probably disparity there amongst counties when it comes to that. But I would be thinking that if touch wood, if we do well next Saturday and things work out well for us, that if you're operating at Christy Ring level, that you'd be expecting to have more funding and investment from provincial councils to get hurling on the rise in places like Connacht and Ulster.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the way it should be, though, that we're only going to give you the games promotion officers if you end up getting promotion, because how are you going to get promotion without getting the games promotion officers? So that interview is available. It's really worth digging out if you are interested in hurling at the lower tiers. And I've put that in inverted commas for those of you who are listening to us as a radio show this morning. It's 9:21. Phil Egan is here with the sports news. Phil, how are you doing?
Very well. We've just got over the draw for the Champions League yesterday in Neon, and they're going to move to Lausanne today for the draw for the Heineken Champions Cup. Switzerland seems to be the place to go if you want a European draw.
Expensive place to go.
I wonder, has anyone done the mystery tour of bureaucracy in European sport? Go from Geneva to Lausanne to Neon to Zurich. Be a great tour. Get a party bus.
Yeah.
On the cans for a week.
I think they drink.
You need to import your cans from Poland.
100%. You need to buy a load of Galahad in Poland and then get a bus down to Switzerland.
I suppose for the first time in 3 years, all 4 Irish provinces are actually going to be in this draw, because Connacht are back in the competition, and last season's runners-up Leinster are going to be one of the top-ranked teams, along with the champions Saracens and Toulouse as well. Munster will be in Tier 2, and there is a chance they could face La Rochelle, now coached by Ronan O'Gara. The draw gets underway at 1 o'clock, so 5 pools of 4 teams will be made, and each pool will contain at least one club from each of the 3 leagues, so the Pro 14, the Premiership, and the Top 14 as well. Tipperary will have to plough it out Patrick Bonner-Maher and Cathal Barrett for the Munster final against Limerick on Sunday week. Both players suffered injuries in Sunday's win over the same opposition. Bonner-Maher, though, out for the season, a cruciate injury. Tipp manager Liam Sheedy says Barrett is facing 3 to 4 weeks out due to a hamstring injury. So after the Munster final, the earliest possible game for Tipperary, if they were to lose on Sunday week, then they would have a game on the weekend of the 13th and 14th of July. If they were to win, their semi-final then would be on the 27th, 28th of July. So obviously if they win, there's a
She'll be back.
Kyle Barrett will be available for that one. Cork and Kerry in the Munster football final this weekend. Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday night, and Cork are unchanged from the win over Limerick, the 21-point win over Limerick in the semi-final. And the interesting thing is 6 players in the starting 15 remain from last year's Munster final against Kerry, which obviously Kerry won by 17 points.
Huge turnover, isn't it?
Massive, yeah. Cork going for their first Munster title since 2012. Brazil beat Italy 1-0 at the Women's World Cup in France last night. A second half penalty for Martha, who is now the record holder for the most goals scored at a World Cup. 17 World Cup goals, 6-time World Player of the Year. Italy actually still finished top of the group though, despite that defeat. So Italy, Australia and Brazil all finished on 6 points, but Italy finished top and they'll play a third place team in the last 16. Looks like it'll be Nigeria or China. Brazil, it looks like they're going to face host France at the weekend. That could change. It's unlikely to change though. You have to get a few freaky results. 4 goals from Sam Kerr gave Australia a 4-1 win against Jamaica. So Australia got through as runners-up. They'll definitely play Norway in the next round. Tonight it's Group D. England play Japan. Scotland take on Argentina. England will seal top spot if they avoid defeat. Scotland have to win to have any chance of progressing. Both games kick off at 8 o'clock. Former Uefa president Michel Platini has been released after being questioned by police over the awarding of the 2022 World Cup to Qatar. Brought in for questioning by the Anti-Corruption Office of the Judicial Police in Paris. He left the office just after midnight.
So you didn't have to stay there overnight. That's all right.
Yeah, didn't have much to say. He had obviously had a lawyer with him, but the general feeling, the quote was, a lot of noise for nothing, is what they were saying when they came out of it. And obviously Platini, a 3-time Ballon d'Or winner, has always denied any wrongdoing. Gareth Bale's agent Jonathan Barnett says a move to Manchester United is unlikely. He's doesn't obviously feature.
His quotes are great.
Yeah, he's not shy, but I suppose that's what a good agent does. But he says he doesn't think Bale wants to go on loan. I know yesterday we talked about the possibility of a loan move to Bayern Munich. We know Zidane doesn't want them, but
yeah,
it's easier said than done getting rid of him.
Jonathan Barnett's quotes were, he's got a great life in Madrid.
Yeah.
Why would he want to go and live anywhere else?
He earns a lot
He's
of money.
literally going to be getting paid to do nothing if Zidane doesn't want him, because there's nothing they can do in these contracts.
You'll have to go and actually try at Manchester United. Try and pull them up from the depths of Europa League into the Champions League.
Look, I'm sure he would enjoy that, right? Because he would be the big dog. He would by far be the alpha dog at Man United if he went there, and he would be effective in the Premier League. I have no doubt that he would be effective if he was fit. But like, what can Real Madrid do here? Go off and train with the youth team? Yeah, okay, I'll go and train with the youth team. I'll show them my tricks. I'll take free kicks against them.
Like
I'll dominate those games.
We talk about Gareth Bale as this asset that if the money was no issue, aka around the wages, most clubs in Europe would actually pick him up and like him.
I think so, yeah.
So why haven't Real Madrid make every single effort to, like, I don't know, invite him over to Zidane's house, go play loads of rounds of golf, we know he loves playing golf, to actually try and fix this thing? It just seems so nonsensical that they would allow this relationship to break down and allow that friction to fester over the last couple of months. It just seemed like such a good footballing decision to get back on good terms with Gareth Bale, no?
Yeah, he's obviously a quality player, but as I said yesterday, I have concerns over his fitness, also the dressing room culture in Real Madrid. They've obviously decided the reason that they had such a bad season, they've just made Gareth Bale the scapegoat. The fans have turned on him. They need somebody to blame, so he's the fall guy.
That might just be it.
And when Ronaldo left, this was Bale's chance to say, right, I'm going to be the main man.
Yeah.
And it hasn't worked out for him, so that's why he's become the scapegoat.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work out for anybody when Ronaldo left is the thing, so I think Ronaldo...
Who knew Ronaldo was good? Anyway, finishing off with a very important story. The grey cardigan worn by Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola has raised more than £6,000 for charity. He said after they beat Watford in the FA Cup final that he was going to donate it to an auction. So the money will be used to support families in Manchester during school holidays. There he is. We can see the picture of him. Pockets look a little bit worn.
I'm sorry, £6,000. That is an absolute bargain. Like, you look back at some of the great jackets that have been worn down through the years, they are instantly iconic. Photos of Pep Guardiola on the 99-point season backing up the 100-point season, beating Liverpool, Champions League champions, to the title, is an iconic season. And pictures of that will become famous down through the years. €6,000. Whoever bought that is going to sell that for €60,000 one day.
Into the Museum of Football straight away.
I'm trying to think of famous jackets. Mourinho's one.
Mourinho.
Old Trafford, 2004.
Does Ferguson have one?
Yeah, Wenger's never-ending one.
The Umbro Ferguson ones. A mate of mine actually had one of the full length, which looked very odd on a 12-year-old.
Umbro.
Well, it wasn't like adult size, but he wore it as a 3/4 length. It was unheard of as kids.
Did he get a ribbing for that?
Not really, because United were the successful team we're in then, and people thought, you know what, if you're going to model yourself in Alex Ferguson,
you could do
we
worse.
can stop you.
Yeah. Feel good stuff. Thanks for that. A reminder that, of course, you can join us on our golf trip to Abu Dhabi. Kevin Caban is coming. Kieran Donaghy is coming. Peter Lawry's coming, and he's going to give out some golf clinics as well. It's 5 nights in a 4-star hotel. Check out offtheball.com/open and pay your deposit today, because that is filling up really quickly. So some winter sun coming your way from November the 17th to the 23rd in Abu Dhabi. We're playing the Yas Links and the National, two of the best courses. Certainly the Yas Links is one of the best courses in the world, and the National is where they play the European Tour events, so it's pretty sweet as well. That's coming your way in November. If you want to come along to the roadshow, to the gala dinner, then get on to offtheball.com/open for details of that. You can get our podcast immediately after this show. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen back or watch back the show on youtube.com/offtheball. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:30. Stay tuned to Off the Ball on offtheball.com for all the good stuff we have coming your way, and then the show is live again on the radio this evening from 7 o'clock. See you tomorrow. Good luck.